Good morning, everyone. Sound check, sound check. Can you all hear me? If you can hear me, type into the chat box, say, yes, you can hear me, or someone maybe open up your microphone. Good. All can hear me. Excellent. Thank you so much. I see some familiar names, so thanks again. Welcome back to one of my sessions. For those of you who are new to me, my name is Yuan. I'll be your facilitator for today. Okay, as you can see from the earlier blurb before I came on, I'm a career coach. I have my own practice. I've been doing this with such workshops for WSG for a number of years now. But at the same time, I also actually train people to become career coaches. All right. So for those of you who are interested to know more about this and any other matters, do stay on for the rest of today. All right. And then we can talk about it later. Okay. Now, before I begin, I just want to make sure that all of you have downloaded the workbook. You can see the QR code down here. All right. And, you can scan that. I'll type in the URL into the chat box again for those of you who came in a bit later. All right, so those of you who have not yet downloaded the workbook, please do so now because I'm going to refer to that workbook throughout the day itself. Okay, so please take the time to do that, and I'll be referring to exercises in there as well. All right, there are about, from what I hear, 60 plus people who signed up for this program. I think so far there's about just under 30. I see some more coming in. So let's give them another couple of minutes before I begin the session proper. Again, for those of you who are not aware, today's session is actually slotted for the whole day. In other words, from 9:30 to 4:30. Okay, so for those of you who are not used to having such a long web session, I'm going to try and make it as interactive as possible, as bearable as possible. But at the same time, I'm going to also giving you breaks and all that. Okay, so hopefully you all can stay until the end, because at the end, for those of you who've not been to my workshops before, I'm going to share with you some bonus tips as well. Okay, and feel free to switch on your webcam if you like, all right, because we have a smaller class. So, and also if you've got any questions, feel free to switch on your microphone and so, or if you want to type in your questions in the chat box also can. All right. Okay. So I think it's stabilized now. We have about 30 plus people here. So let's begin. All right. So I think those of you, I've already talked a little bit about myself. All right. So maybe what I need your help now is for me to understand who you are. All right. So I'm going to put up a poll for you to take a look at this. So let me just bring the poll here. So you see the poll here. All right, so it's basically asking you to answer three very, very simple questions you see on the right-hand side here. Okay, so whether you're employed, whether you're working full-time, if you're starting to look at a business. So let me share this poll itself. Okay, so you can see the poll there. So please help me type it in. Hopefully we get the majority of you sharing your results so that I know how I'm going to angle my discussion with you. All right. So, okay, so about half, just under half of you have typed it in. Okay, now we have about 48, almost 50%. Thank you so much. Let's see, let's try and hit 80+%. Okay, somehow or other, whenever I do such polls, I never get 100% on. The most I get is about 90%. So let's try and see if we can hit the record. Okay, give me 90%, give me 90%. All right, so we seem to have stopped at about 64%. All right, so it seems like it's stable. Nobody else is doing this. Okay, if that's the case, then I'm going to end the poll now, and then let's take a look at the results. Share the results. Okay, so you can see the results here. I think the majority of you are looking for a job. All right, unemployed. About 27, just under 30% are working but looking around. And interestingly, about just under 10% are thinking of starting your own business. That's great. All right, so thank you so much for sharing. So let me just stop share first and then close off this particular thing. All right, good. Now that I know what your current status is, apologies, I just tapped on the microphone. I know how to sort of angle the discussion for today. All right, so first things first, I want to sort of get an understanding from you. Today's workshop is about redesigning your career. Okay, redesigning your career. So let me ask you, maybe you can type into the chat box, Why are you here? Why do you want to redesign your career? Can you type into the chat box, tell me why? You know, why do you feel that you want to look at your career in a different way? If you can share with me into the chat box, that would be great. Oh, by the way, you may notice that you can see me on this big screen. I'm sharing the screen, right? And then you may also notice that I'm actually also in the smaller speaker view there. So the reason why I have this is because sometimes people feel that either the resolution is not good enough or there's a lag in terms of the visual as well as the audio. Okay, so that's why I have both, so you can choose. Okay, good. Thank you so much. I see some responses. Options, you want to do a career change, career pivot. All right, so looking at options, yeah, many people change of line, explore new opportunities, explore something new, how to be well prepared for changes, to have a meaningful role. Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing. I think this is very important for me to understand your motivation for coming in for today's workshop. Okay, great. Now, you know, many people coming into their work or their career, you know, there's all, especially for those of us who have been working for a long time, okay, we come to a stage where we feel that, hey, something needs to change. Okay, now if you look at this particular survey that was done actually in 2019, before pandemic, right? Even as far back as then, surveys like this have found that the majority of people in Singapore actually are not very happy with their lives right now. I feel very unsatisfied with their progress towards their long and short-term goals. Okay, now if you look at it in a more recent times, okay, Gartner did this survey in early part of this year, and they were doing this in response to this phenomenon of the Great Resignation. I'm sure you all heard of that, right? Okay, and they're asking, why are people resigning so much? I mean, in these bad times especially. So here they found that employees, you know, are basically saying that they want to change. They feel that their feelings towards their work and their lives are very different now. And the pandemic has actually accelerated such feelings. Okay, and why is there such an acceleration? And they basically suggested this particular notion that we employees or workers, right, we want to bring our whole selves to work. Okay, in the old days, we were able to say that, you know, wow, you know, the person that I am at work is very different from the person I am at home or outside of work. Yeah, and I guess in the old days, probably it's easier to do that. But now with all the pressures of work, the pressures of society, it's very difficult to actually separate the two. Okay, so this notion of bringing your whole self to work becomes a lot more important. So we cannot separate ourselves, our identities from the one at work as well as the one outside of work. So if your identity at work is so different that you have to force yourself to become a different person, then obviously there's a disconnect somewhere. And many people are feeling that right now, and especially during times like this. The irony now is also simple, right? That in times like this as well, while there is the Great Resignation, there are also a lot of people who are not working. All right, and I see the majority of you, thank you for filling up that survey and being honest about it. You are in that same position. Okay, now, and many people are taking this opportunity when you are in between jobs to actually take a look at yourselves and say, hey, you know, why did I resign or why did I lose my job? Is it possible for me to look at things in a different way? All right. So hopefully that's what you are thinking right now. Okay. I see a lot of the responses to seek a different environment, to go to a different industry, to seek better opportunities. Okay. So let's talk about the definition of redesign. Okay. Here, definition says to revise in appearance, function, or content. Right. So I'm sure you all have heard of this little phrase, right? You know, the definition of insanity is to expect something different despite the fact that you keep doing the same thing over and over again. Okay, so hopefully maybe that's why you are here, to think about, oh, maybe, you know, instead of doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, what can I change about myself? What can I change about the things that I'm doing? Okay, so if you look at it that way, if I ask you now, okay, As far as your career is concerned, what are some of the key questions you would be asking yourself? Can you type into the chat box? What are some of the key career questions you are asking yourself if you are in that frame of mind, right? About wanting to redesign your career. What are some of the questions you would ask yourself? Can you type into the chat box? Is it the same as what you were saying to seek better opportunities? Or is there some specific questions that you feel that I need to answer this? And hopefully I can help you through today. Why am I not getting a job? Floyd says, okay. Any other questions you would ask yourself? How do I upskill? Things that I would enjoy doing. Very good. Any other particulars? What is good for me? Thank you, Rizwan. I think that's a very good question. How can I add value to the company? Excellent. Those are very good questions, actually. All right, how can I add value? What is good for me? And all that. So I think, thank you so much again for those of you who are sharing this with me or with us in the chat box. Essentially, if you look at things to change, Augusta says, how can I rebrand myself? Very good. In essence, the things that you want to change, right, in terms of your career, really can fall into a few categories. So I'm going to sum this up. I think many of you have already included that in, right? So the first thing is, how do I get into a new industry, or how do I move up? How do I get promoted? Okay. How do I move out, or should I move out of my job or my career and go into a different industry or career, or even a different job? Okay. Or another way to look at it is, do I need to change something? Do I need to change my management style? Do I need to add new skills? Or do I need to be better at my current skills? Someone mentioned about upskilling. Okay, that's when put how can I sell myself? All right. So these are basically some of the questions we would ask ourselves, right? Okay, the categories involved. Now, those of you who are in the same generation as me, okay, I'm now almost 60. This year I'll be 60. So those of you who were born in the 1960s, right, when you started working, right, we were always under this notion, right, that we must find the right job so that, the school and everything we go through education is all propelling us to the right job. Okay, it's a very smooth path. Correct or not, right? Those of you who have gone through that path, and then so you put a lot of pressure on yourself. Say, oh, the first job I get must be the right one. Okay, so this is dysfunctional. In today's time, is very dysfunctional. Okay, because the belief that you have to figure out the best possible life to make a plan, execute it, is no longer a relevant thing now today. All right. So hopefully, maybe if you already believe this throughout the course of today, hopefully by the end of today, you also see this as well. Okay. Now, all of us know this, right? Our careers can look like this, right? You can see a lot of twists and turns. You move laterally, you move backwards a bit, sometimes you move forward, okay? So there are lots of twists and turns. So the thing that we need to look at it very, very differently now is really to take a reframe here. Okay, and tell ourselves, we have multiple great lives within ourselves, and we get to choose which one we want to build. All right, so think about this. All right, we have a lot of different ways to approach our life, our career now. Okay, so which one do we pick? All right, so here it is about a lifetime of careers, not one career for a lifetime. Okay, so hopefully y'all can see that, because at the end, you want to be able to position yourself that you're flexible, you're adaptable, you can move between different things. Okay, so that is the whole purpose of looking at it this way. That's the whole purpose of looking at this notion that we have a lifetime of careers and not just one career for a lifetime. Is that all right? Okay. Is it okay if you all agree with me? Can you all type into the chat box yes, or put a thumbs up into your speaker box or whatever? Great. Thank you, Gary. Yes. Okay. Great. All right. So hopefully, if you're not convinced now, hopefully by the end of today you will be. Yeah. So what is the learning outcome for today? What would I hope you achieve at the end of today's session? Okay. Now, for those of you who are here expecting a job search workshop, in other words, how do I find a job? How do I go apply for a job and all that? I just want to be sure that I'm upfront with you and say this is not a job search process, not a job search workshop. Okay? Although some of the things I mentioned, you can use it to apply. Okay, but it's not purely targeted at how to find a job. However, instead of this, what I want to go through with you is some of the techniques and ways that you can use to cope with disruption. And this can apply to many of the career status that you have just listed, whether you are employed or unemployed, whether you are new to the workforce, whether you have been away from the workforce for a long time and you're coming back to the workforce. And those of you who are maybe even thinking about starting your own business. Okay, so what I'm going to go through with you is basically a set of techniques, a set of outlook, the way you look at things to help you cope with disruption itself. So hopefully, you are okay with this. If those of you who are expecting a job search workshop, sorry, it is not directly in that topic, although a lot of things that I'm going through with you can be used as well. Okay, so that is the key learning outcome. But through how do we get to this stage is really, I want to go through with you a couple of steps. The first one is that I'll need to go through with you how you identify your identity, your professional identity. And the reason why this is very, very important is because knowing yourself, knowing who you are, what your professional identity is, this sets as a benchmark. So from there, you can decide what you need to change as far as your career is concerned. So this is actually a very, very important step. Okay, so hopefully you sort of go through with me, go through the exercises to help you identify that. Is that okay? All right. Then after that, it's only after we know how to establish our professional identity, then we start looking at what can we do to redesign our career. Okay, what can we do to redesign our career? So currently now there are about 40 plus of us here. All right, so this is what we're going to talk about today. All right, so there are a few topics here. I've been doing this topic for quite a number of years now, and the last time I did this was a few months ago. And I'm actually changing the way that I'm doing it from the last time. The last time I found that many people told me while the templates and all were very useful, it was a bit complicated. So those of you who have been to my workshop before, I want to make it as simple as possible so that it's easy to action. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do for today. All right, so the topics there, I'm going to go through with you some definitions involved. All right, so that we understand what are the terms before I move on. Then I'm going to talk about the professional identity. Okay, hopefully I can do that within this morning. All right, then the rest of the day I'll go through the redesign process, which is in the afternoon, essentially in the afternoon. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, we have from now until 4:30 latest. I'll try and finish maybe about 4. I always want to give some time for Q&A later on, maybe even earlier than that. Right. Now, for those of you who are always asking me, when is the break time? When is the break time? So you see the times there. Okay. So I'm going to give you a mid-morning break, probably around 10:30, 10:45, probably a 15-minute break, slightly longer. And then the lunch break is around 12, and then the mid-afternoon break around 3 o'clock. But however, in between, I'm going to try to give you as many small little breaks, maybe 5 minutes or so each way. So that gives you a time ability to stretch yourself. Okay. Now, I mentioned earlier, okay, if you've got any questions, by all means, ask. Okay, because we are in a small group, we have the whole day. By all means, just either open up your microphone and ask, or you type into the chat box. And when you have a question in the chat box, please do type in the capital letter Q before you start your question, so that it's easy for me to spot. Is that all right? Okay. Are we okay with this process for today? Are we okay? If you're okay, can you type yes or you thumbs up or whatever, just to let me know? Okay. All right, good. Now, for those of you who've been to my previous workshop before, you know that I also give a bonus section at the end. So, if you want to continue to stay on for me, that's great. For those of you who are interested to know what the bonus things are, by all means, stay on after that. All right? Okay, very good. So let's begin. So let's talk about this term we call disruption. This term disruption. Can you tell me what is disrupting you in your life right now? Can you type into the chat box? What are the things that's disrupting you, causing you to change the things that you, the way you think, the way you do things? What's happening with you right now that's causing you to think that way? Can you type into the chat box? Is it because I know some of you, many of you are looking for work? The reason why you're looking for work, is it because you're unhappy? Is it because of the you are at a particular age? Or are you, is the economy doing badly? Is your company retrenching or what? Okay. I'm working full-time, cannot say publicly by microphone, burnout. Okay. Seeking passion in a career, looking to recapture excitement in the professional life. Right, new technology, increase in expectation. So there's Mel says not the two ways to look at it: change in the landscape and also change in our own expectation. Digital transformation, no promotion. Okay, too fast a change. All right. After learning new things, you want to apply it, cannot find one. So looking for a new passion. Oh, very good. I like this word passion, Sue, and we're going to talk a little bit about passion later on. So hold that thought. Multitasking, Desmond, job multitasking. That's an interesting term. Right? So maybe later on you can help me understand what do you mean by job multitasking. All right? Okay, very good. So the thing here now is this: when we look at disruption, right? How do we classify the things that's happening? So it could be economic. In other words, the economy is not doing well. Thank you, DC and Charlie, for okay, you're saying also relooking in yourself, dilemma to reskill towards a tech job or not. Hui Kiang says, I no longer follow the company's footsteps, looking for a job with higher satisfaction. Right? Good. So life stage is also another important factor, right? So maybe you are reaching a stage in life where you feel that you need a change. Okay. Many of us, I know when I made my changes in my career, it was because I reached a certain stage in life where my priorities were different already. Okay. Work nature has changed. Okay. And many of you have has mentioned that maybe your role has changed, your job has changed, the way your company operates has changed. All right. So that's causing you to rethink values and interests. Okay. So a lot of you are also saying that, there are things that's happening in your life that you are questioning whether it is really important to you. Okay. So really all these things are very, very important. Okay. And the thing here, sorry, we need to understand is this: disruption will always be there. The disruption will always be there. So the question is, how do we cope with this? So typically when we're looking at how we cope with disruption, especially in our careers, right? I always find that we tend to ask ourselves these three questions. Where do I fit in? Where do I fit in? Where can I grow further? And what is my best value add? Okay, so usually it's these three fundamental questions. A lot of time when I ask, when I'm talking to my own clients about questions like this, okay, these are usually the three things that come up. All right, so that's the important part. Now, the next thing I think we need to understand here is this. Okay, what are the definitions of work? What are the definitions of value? What are the definitions of success? Bear with me, because I think this is very important, because it sort of makes us look at things in a very different way. And that becomes a fundamental aspect of how I'm going to approach today's session. Okay, so if you look at it, what does work mean to you? You know, how do you calculate the value of your work? Your market value, right? And how do we know we are successful? Okay, now I want to show you a short video. Okay, and I want you to take a look at this video and then think about what the person, the narrator, is trying to tell us. Does it change fundamentally the way we look at things? All right, so take a look at this.
Once upon a time, we took the launch and land approach to managing our careers. We prepared our rockets for flight into career space and launched a job search. We blasted off, and with luck, we parachuted safely to our destination below, Planet Job. But we often found that we had landed on a dying world. Or we would suck all the occupational oxygen out of the atmosphere and the air would grow toxic. So, mustering our energy and gathering fuel for another flight, we laboriously rebuilt our rockets and bang! Again, we launched, soared, and parachuted down to the next planet. In short, for most of us, career management simply meant getting one job in a row. There are two problems with the launch and land approach. First, it's not true career management. It's like the parachute, you can only use it one time in a row. That's why many of us strive for longevity in the same organization, to avoid facing our lack of a bigger career picture. The second problem is that the fundamental laws of physics governing the career universe have changed. In the first two-thirds of the 20th century, career physics was dominated by what we might call the stairway to heaven model. Command and control management in thriving economies made for structured, orderly career paths. But rapidly changing business models, the projectization of work, and tough economic times caused the stairway to collapse. Today, much work is defined as projects, each with a clear beginning and a clear end. These projects can be completed by contractors, temporary staff, vendors, or partners, not just by regular employees. And projects are focused on delivering results. That means workers have to create value, not merely keep busy by performing activities.
I don't know whether that shakes your view, right? Whether that shakes the way you look at yourself and the things that you've been doing. Every time I show this video, there's bound to be someone in the audience that says, oh my goodness, is that the way I need to look at myself, the way I look at things? Okay. So the first question I want to ask you is this, okay? What does work mean to you? What is the meaning of work? Can you type into the chat box? What does work mean to you? You can type into the chat box and tell us, what does work mean to you? After looking at this video, you know, does it change the way you look at the things that you are doing? It's something that you like to do, creating value. Interesting, Gary. Any other meaning? What is it about work? Passion, vocation, and accomplishment. Thank you, Rizwan. Floyd, I like the word passion again. Again, I'm going to address that particular word passion in a while. Huh? Take pride of accomplishment, engagement. Work is how we build and deliver value to customers. I like that, Augustus. Very good. Excellent. Okay, so I think, you know, I want you to take a look at this quote. This quote I find it very surprising for two reasons. One, not only the words that it said when I first saw it, but also from who said it. From who said it. Huh? Maybe you get the same surprise as well. Can you see this quote? Service to others is the rent you pay for your room here on earth. Muhammad Ali. The boxer, huh? This is the boxer, right? The great Muhammad Ali. Now, bear with me. Let me flow through why he said it and why I believe in this and why I think you should also believe in it. Okay, so work here, if we use this same analogy, we flow the definition down. Okay, so work means what? Work means helping others. Okay, so bear with me, follow the train of thought here. So work means helping others. Okay, why do we say this? Because when we help others, okay, what happens? We deliver value, right? And once we deliver value, people are willing to pay us for it, right? So think about this, huh? What work means? Work is basically how we help other people to deliver value to them. So from value, if we deliver value, if they see value in what we do for them, they are willing to pay us. All right? So that's one argument, right? Then the next thing here is this. How then do you calculate the value of your work? Anybody got any thoughts about this? Can you type into the chat box? How do you then calculate the value of your work? Anyone? Think about this, huh? We only get paid when people value us, right? So then how do we then calculate this? How do we then calculate this? How much others appreciate the work? Satisfaction of Asfana. Hopefully I've pronounced your name correctly, Afsana, all right? A couple of you got it, slightly on the same track. Satisfaction, improve productivity, the impact on company or people or company, says Chiwi. How much ROI they get from the salary they pay us. Wow, very businessman-like. How others benefit from our work. I like that, Hui Kiang. Okay, hold that thought. How much one can deliver according to the company expectations. So let me ask you this. Augustus, value is what the customer perceive and therefore pay for what they believe is desired. Let me ask you this. Those of us who are working or who have worked before, let me ask you, is activity, in other words, the things that we do, value? Is that equal to value? So let me sort of give you some examples of jobs. Okay, now, I just list down 4 examples here. Accounting, marketing, sales, administration. So those are jobs, and many people see this as activities, all right? We go into office, we are an accountant, we go to office, we do marketing, administration, we are performing tasks, activities, okay? But is that enough? Are people paying us to do those tasks, right? Or are people paying us to do something else, to achieve something else? So let me ask you, for those of you who are accountants right now, okay, what do accountants do? What benefit does the accountant bring to the table, to the company? Can anybody type into the chat box? If you are an accountant, hopefully you know this. What value do you bring to the table? What do accountants bring to the table as far as the things that you do? Any accountants out there? What is it about accounting? What do accountants do that the company say, oh, I need to have an accountant in my organization? What do you guys think? No one? Okay, let me suggest something here. Okay, Hilda says preparing financial statements of the company in accordance with IFRS. Okay, good, Hilda. But why? Why do we need to prepare all this? Okay, is it towards something? Okay, so let me suggest this for you. Financial overview, taking care of company resources. Accountants help company to compute progress of the business, loss and fraud. Yeah, some of you have got it. Okay, so possibly accountants, right? Whatever task they do, in one of the things they bring to the table is that they may help the company control costs, right? Or to project losses or to control costs. Yeah. Now let me ask you the next one: marketing. Those of you who are marketing people, what benefit do you bring to the table? How does marketing people help the company? Okay, Chu says increase sales. Is that marketing or is that sales? Okay. Sales is the end result, but the direct result of marketing, a good marketing person is what does he do? Okay, Lynette says promote awareness of company's product and services, create awareness. So what happens when you create awareness? I'm trying to get you all to think further down the line. Huh? Okay, so maybe I suggest this, okay? Marketing is about meeting other people's needs. So your customer needs, right? So you're creating something. So if your customer, your end customer feels that, hey, this company is able to help me. So the marketing people have got to make that person, that target customer know about your company. So you're trying to meet their needs, okay? So sales. Let's talk about sales. I think sales is pretty straightforward, right? I think quite a few of you already mentioned this. Okay, what is the benefit of salespeople? Okay, this I think is pretty straightforward. Bring in the moolah, bring in the moolah. All right, so deliver revenue. All right, what about administration? Those of you who are office managers, or I mean, I will classify maybe, well, maybe you will argue with me, HR really is not administration, okay, so administration. all the execs, all the PAs, all the people in general administration, office manager. Okay, Lynette says organize the house. Yeah. What happens when you organize the house? What benefit does it bring? Okay, keep the office activities in order. What does it bring? What does it bring to the house, to the office? It brings order, right? It brings, and what happens when things are orderly? What happens when things are orderly? You become more efficient, right? Okay. So this is where the value comes in. So what I'm trying to say here is this: the value of whatever we do in a profession or a career, you cannot, that is the benefits. It has to be translated into the benefits. Okay. So once we look at the benefits, once people realize the benefits that we bring to the table, then that's where they look at us, how valuable we are. That's where they start thinking, oh, I better pay this person more because the benefits he brings to the table is greater. Okay, so that's why sometimes, different companies, they may pay different people differently. Okay, a marketing person in company A may be paid differently from a marketing person in company B, right? Or maybe within the company, if you have two persons performing the same role, they may pay you differently because they may perceive the value that you give to them is different. Okay, so value is really the benefits you bring to the table. So if we are trying to understand this, then don't we need to then ask ourselves, who do we help? What needs do you fulfill in your career, in your job, and how do you help people? All right, so this relates back to the first definition of work, where work is about helping people. Okay, when you help people, you develop value, right? And value is what? Value is about the benefits you bring to the table. Okay, hopefully, so far, are we okay with this? All right, I hope it's not too dramatic shift for you. I think it's intuitive. A lot of us think of it this way, but maybe I'm just putting it on the table so that you sort of look at it maybe in a much more clearer fashion, because I think this is a very to some people it may be a very different way of looking at it, because I think we are so relaxed, so comfortable in just doing activity and say we are getting paid for it, right? So we become very lackadaisical, right? And therefore maybe we just lose the passion in our work. However, if we look at the work, the way we do things in terms of what benefits we bring to the table, maybe things will change. All right, so let's talk about the last bit here. Success. What are the signs of career success? What do you guys think? You type in the chat box. What are the things that tell you that you have been successful? What are the things that tell you you have been successful? Remember, linking it back to the first two definitions that we have, right? Work is about helping people. Value is about delivering benefits. So what is success? What is success to you? What are the signs of success? Okay, let me just share the chat. Reward recognition to meet your own personal objective, deliver value, getting compliments from customers. Okay. What else is there? Busy life might be a barren life if it lacks meaning and purpose. Thank you. And we're going to talk about purpose later on as well. Augustus, satisfaction 360, derive satisfaction, achieving milestones. Purpose-driven life. I like that, Floyd. We're going to talk about purpose. So really hold that horse, purpose-driven life. So why don't I suggest this? Okay. Remembering the first two definitions that we had, all right? Work means helping others. And when we help other people, they see the value in us, they pay us. When they pay us because we bring benefit to them, or we bring benefit to the organization, right? So how are we then seen as being successful? If we look at it, when we are good at doing those things that bring the benefit to other people. Okay, so many of you have said this, you get good feedback from people. People tell you, oh, you've been successful, or you feel good about helping people, then you know you've been successful. Or people, the reaction from anybody who you help tells you that you are good in what you do. All right? So let's recap the whole thing again. Okay? Let's recap the whole thing again. So work. What is work? is about helping others achieve their needs instead of tasks and activities. So think about this. It is about helping other people achieve their needs, not just the things that you do. Right? So what's value? We need to identify the benefit we give when helping others. This is how we get rewarded. All right. Okay. Success. To ensure that we have longevity, we have career longevity, we need to be good at helping others. All right, I'm going to leave this shot on the screen and get you all to think about it first. Okay. If you got any questions about definitions of this law, please raise it now. Okay, because this is going to be the fundamental basis that we're going to operate on for the rest of today. Okay, if you want to take a screenshot of this and bring it back home and think about this, that's fine. Okay, or you can type into the workbook. In fact, the workbook I've got has got space for you to type this in. Right. Oh, by the way, the workbook is actually, although it's a Word document, part of it is actually, only parts of it are editable. Okay, the rest of it are not. So you can edit or input your comments or your thoughts into the spaces that are made available for you. Okay. Right. Any questions about these three definitions? Anything that you want to ask, anything you want to clarify, or comments or whatever? Okay. Gary says one can be successful but have less passion. Well, again, the question here is, and I'm actually going to address this, Gary, is how is passion really enough in our work, in our career? All right, hold that thought. I'm going to raise this question again later on. Yes, it's good to have passion, but is it enough? Okay. Hold that thought, Gary. All right. Any others? Any other comments or questions? Okay. So while we are mulling about it, let's move on to the next one. All right. Okay, so we've done about definition, we're done defining things. So let's talk about the next step, which is an identity. All right. So here, okay, so let me sort of go backwards a bit. All right. In today's world, right, with internet and everything, all of us, I'm sure all of you, right, have been on multiple social media channels. Okay, we're asking ourselves, no, who is the real person? Who is a real person when we have so many different ways of looking at it? I'm sure, like, for example, if you're in Facebook, you present yourself differently from when you're on LinkedIn and all that. Okay, so the new reality here is that we could be very, very different people. And maybe that's why many of us have difficulty when you go for interviews and they ask you, tell me about yourself. You get it or not? Right? Tell me about yourself. I know a lot of us have difficulty. And I think the reason why we have difficulty answering that question is because we are not sure what aspect of ourselves do we reveal that will get us the job, right? So there's this notion of whether should we then have a professional self that is different from our personal self. A professional self that is different from our personal self. Are we able to separate it? Because this thing about having a whole self to work is becoming more and more prevalent nowadays. Okay, so here the notion here I want to try and get across here is this. We need to understand how best we operate in different environments. And maybe the difficulty here is that rather than separating our professional self from our personal self, can we then look at creating an identity, whether you call it professional identity or whatever, that allows us to transfer who we are into different environments. Right? Because then that becomes our real self. Think about this, okay? Some of you may still feel that we don't want to be the other person outside of work when we bring it to work. That's fine, okay? But what I'm saying here is this: for career longevity, how long can you keep this up? That's what I'm trying to say. Okay? Maybe some of us, or maybe some of you can feel that I'm able to have a China wall and say, I'm going to create this two different identities. You know, like you, after work, you jump into a phone booth and you become Superman, right? But while during the day, you become Clark Kent, the mild-mannered reporter. Oh, good question, right? If you're Superman, who is the real Superman? Is it Clark Kent or is it the guy in tights, right? Okay, so same question I asked you. All right. So the thing here, yeah, I think Chu, I like that comment here. If personal and professional identity are too different, you can lead to burnout. And I personally believe that, yes, to some point we can separate it, but if we separate it too distinctly and too differently, you know, it can't last long. There's an inherent conflict within us. Okay. Now, again, like I mentioned earlier, okay, I want to spend a bit of time on this because this becomes, when we try to identify our identity, professional identity, or whatever term you call it, I'm going to call it professional identity, okay, for sake of a better term. I'm going to use this as a base, a benchmark, right? You are going to use this as a benchmark because once you know who you are, right, then you are able to know what you can change, what you can redesign. Is this okay? Right? So that's my approach for today. All right. So how do we then go about identifying what our identity is? Okay. Now there are lots of ways to do it. I'm just going to suggest 4 different ways. Okay. But you know, all of you will know that there are many, many different ways to do it. Okay. Let me take a look at some of the comments here first before I go on. All right. So does this keep some component personal and professional identity so there's a mixture? That's what Chiu said. Okay, passion comes with action, success. Okay, so this one, we're still talking about identity here. All right. Now, those of you, who know about my company, maybe this is a little fun fact here. The reason why I call my company life work, okay, is because I firmly believe that life and work, right, cannot be too different, right? So I personally feel that it cannot be two separate things, right? So I want to practice this notion that what I do in my work and my career should feed into each other. Sorry, my work and my life should feed into each other and give me fulfillment. That's why I named my company like this. That's my personal philosophy. All right. Okay, enough about that. Okay, so let's talk about this word purpose. Okay, some of you have mentioned this thing about purpose. So let's talk about this. I want to address this elephant in the room. You know, all of us have got this. I'm sure you have been asked before, right? Okay. The way to find the ideal job is to find our passion. Passion has always been the key word here, right? Every time, you go, those of you who have been with other career coaches, right? You probably have heard this a lot of time. What are you passionate about? What do you love to do? Right? So the question I want to ask is a couple of things, right? You think about this. Is it enough? Is passion enough when we are looking at the right job or the right career? What do you guys think? Is it enough just to have passion? Is it enough just to have passion? That's first question. Okay. Then the other question I want to ask you is this. Can you identify your passion? Can you identify your passion? Those of you who can identify your passion, can you type into the chat box what your passion is? What is your passion right now? If you can, that's great. The thing here is this. Many a time when I coach my clients, whether they are new graduates, people who have just gone into the career, started the career, or people who have worked for a long time, it is not uncommon for people to have difficulty in answering this question. What is your passion? What is your passion? Okay. Gary says helping the right enterprise to build the next brand. Some people can answer you. And I find that really fantastic. And, by all means, go after that, what you feel that you're passionate about. Okay. But many people have difficulty identifying what their passion is. Right. So let me sort of share with you. In order to know what our passion is, right, there are some assumptions we need to have. What are the assumptions? Wow, I see a lot of people typing in, my passion is help others who are less knowledgeable, solve problems, learn new things, apply them at work. That's fantastic. Okay. The assumption, okay, those of you who have passion, are able to identify your passion, right? I believe you're working on a couple of things here that I'm going to list down right now. First of all, we have existing passion, and this passion can be easily identified. And how can we identify passion? How can we do this, right? This comes from experience. It comes from actually being exposed to the activity itself. Okay. And the other thing that is very important is that sometimes this passion needs time to develop. Needs time to develop. So those of you who have typed into the chat box, have described to us the things that you are passionate about. I'm pretty sure that, this comes from either one of those things that I mentioned in the red box and in the blue box. Okay. You have done it before. It comes with experience, and you have probably a number of years work experience for you to cultivate that passion, right? Now, we being Singaporeans, we also become, we are very practical people, right? So when we ask, I remember every time I ask one my clients, I'm sure I'm bound to get at least one person that says, I just want to be practical, don't tell me about passion and all. Just tell me, how can passion be translated into something that I can do? Okay, so sometimes also people feel that, oh, passion, finding a passion, that's not very practical. Well, I just want to do something to earn money. Okay, so yeah, very true, very true. Okay, now can I suggest something? Instead of focusing so much on finding your passion, given this assumption here that maybe we need time to find our passion, or maybe we need to experience something in order to identify that as a passion. Okay, is there another way to look at it? Is there another way to look at it? And this is where I come to this word, purpose. Okay, so if you can identify your passion, that's great. But what I'm also saying here is that maybe passion alone is not enough. Maybe passion alone is not enough. I bring you back to this article that was done by Gartner, the study that was done by Gartner. All right. So they say that employees seek personal value and purpose at work, and they're asking companies to be aware of this. Okay. So again, people are saying, I need to have a purpose in life. When I go to work, I need to know why I'm doing this. Okay. And then you may ask yourself, why is it so important? Why is purpose important? Maybe some people say it's equally important as passion. Well, if you have purpose, if you have a sense of purpose, it really helps you to overcome hurdles. Because in whatever job or activity that we do, okay, there's going to be difficulties. There's going to be hurdles we need to overcome. Yes, passion may be able to help you in this, but sometimes you need that little boost, that little spring, and that spring of purpose that helps you jump even higher. Okay, so hopefully you'll see it that way, right? So that's why I want to emphasize this notion of purpose. And in fact, I think purpose is actually sometimes not as difficult to identify as passion, because purpose is more about what you look at in terms of the things that you want to do, in terms of the things that who you do it for. Okay, so then the question now we ask ourselves, how do we identify our purpose? How do we identify this? Think about this. How do you identify your sense of purpose? Your sense of purpose. I'm going to show you another video. Okay, the person speaking in this video, you probably recognize that person very, very quickly, especially those of you who are Apple fans. Okay, Apple fanboys, or fangirls, right? You know very quickly who that person is. So I want you to take a look at this, and then think about what he said. All right, and then we come back to this notion of a purpose. All right.
What's interesting is that it is now 25 years since you got your MBA, and as part of your MBA experience, you were asked to write a 25-year plan.
I was.
How did that work out for you?
There was a professor, I think his name was Dr. Naylor. Does that sound right?
Tom Naylor.
Yeah, Tom Naylor. And he was a great professor, and one of the things that he asked us to do was to write a 25-year plan. Maybe some of you have had to do this. And it was more of a, more of a personal plan. And
sorry, I need to mute some people. Okay.
Normally I would never remember this, but I was doing a commencement address a few years ago, and I was scrambling for some old things, and I found in a box this plan. And this plan had turned yellow because of age, but I looked at it, and I would say it was reasonably accurate for all of 18 to 24 months after it was written. And it was nothing, there was nothing, not a single thing on it that was accurate post that. Not a single thing. Zero. And I think that the lesson there is, at least for me, maybe you guys will be different, maybe you have much more insight into what you may be doing, but for me, the journey was not predictable at all. And it goes sort of back to the Lincoln quote, is the only thing I believe you can do is prepare. And the world is going to change many times. The environment's going to change many times. The companies you work for are going to ebb and flow. You may wind up in the same company, you may not. You may wind up in the same career, you may not. You may wind up with the spouse you're married to now, you may not. There are lots of things in your life. I hope that one doesn't change. But there's lots of things that change, and I think that you sort of have to have a North Star and stay with the North Star and let those things go on about you and sort of find your journey.
So, do you all recognize that person? That person who's talking? Especially those Apple fanboys and girls. Okay, that's Tim Cook, right? So what was he saying there? He was essentially saying that things change. So if those of you who are into sailing, you know, right? When the winds change, when the tides change, you still need to be able to steer and navigate yourself. And many a time you need to have something that fixes you, that says, I'm doing this, I'm going to that direction, or I want to do this because of something that's up there that allows me to do that. Okay, so this is what we mean by purpose. All right, so the thing here now is this: how to identify the purpose. I'm going to suggest 3 ways to do it. Okay, or rather 3 questions that you ask yourself. Why? Why are we doing this? Why am I doing this? Who am I doing this for? And how am I doing this? Okay, so let me sort of bring up the workbook now. Okay, if you go down, all right, so you can see a lot of the things here I'm showing the workbook. Huh? Okay, all right, so on this page here, on page, what page is this? 9. Okay, if you can go to page 9, all right, you will see these 3 spaces. Why am I doing this? Who am I doing it for? Who am I serving? How am I doing it? I want you to think about this, all right? Now it is 10:30. I'm going to go for a 15-minute break. While we're going through this break, you obviously can have your break, but at the same time, can you take a look at these questions and ask yourself those questions, right? And then we come back to this. Okay, those of you who came in later, let me just paste the URL again for the workbook. Okay, it's in the chat box now. All right, so those of you who have not seen the workbook link, this is in the chat box. So again, 15-minute break, and then we come back. All right. Hopefully during that 15-minute break, you have a chance to actually fill those things up. Is that all right? Okay. So I see you guys in a little while. Okay. 15 minutes. Hello, hello. Welcome back to the break, from the break rather. Okay, hope you all had a good stretch and maybe you went for a nice coffee, but at the same time also had a chance to answer the questions. All right, so I just want to address a couple of questions that came into the chat box itself. So maybe you have the same thoughts about it. So one question was, this question about why am I doing this? Does this refer to what I want to do as a purpose? Okay, now, initially I answered yes, it can refer to that, what you want to do. But it can also refer to why are you searching? Why are you looking at doing something different? Okay, so the way you answer that could be in various ways, because at the end of the day, what the purpose of the whole objective of answering these questions is really for you to put down in words, right, clearly and visibly, what is the thinking behind the things that you want to do, want to achieve. Okay, so if you are not sure about what job you want to do or what new career you want to do, then maybe this question is, why are you looking? Why are you looking to do something different? Okay, so maybe you could answer it that way. So whoever asked that question, hopefully, that helps you answer that as well. All right. Then let me see, there's another one. Okay. Yeah, I think that was the key one. I think the others were around actually the same question as well. So hopefully all of you are able to answer the series of questions. Anybody got anything you want to raise or any difficulties? All right, like I mentioned just now, right? The whole idea of doing this particular exercise is really for you to put it down somewhere, okay? To crystallize your thoughts about, the meaning behind of the things that you're trying to do, trying to achieve. Okay, whether it's changing a job, whether it's continuing, even maybe as simple as, why are you working in the first place? Why do you want to work? Okay, so why am I doing this? Who am I doing it for is also very important, because sometimes you may say, I want to do it for my family. For example, for me, when I first answered such questions, my main purpose of who am I doing it for is for my family, okay, for my children. Okay, so that gave me a sense of purpose. Okay, then the next couple of questions, who am I serving and how am I doing it? Maybe, if those of you who have difficulty answering the last two questions, I've got the next few slides which probably will help you. So let me just touch on this. Okay, so let me just close this particular. All right. Okay, welcome back. All right, so let's move on to the next part here. When you have who am I serving and how am I doing this, right? So here, it's really all about putting together some statements, right? So the questions were trying to help you to put together those statements. So the last two questions are pretty important, because if you recall the definitions we discussed in the first section about the meaning of work, how you deliver value, right? How do you gauge success? It's linked to this next few slides. Okay, so essentially, purpose statements, okay, is trying to address who do we serve or help. Okay, so you've already answered the first questions. Who am I doing it for? Sometimes you may be doing it for your family, for yourself, right? You may be doing it for yourself. Okay, why am I doing it? Again, it could be similar trends. Okay, who do we serve or help is something we need to crystallize very, very clearly. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of my own purpose statements, which I crafted a couple of years ago. Okay, so maybe that gives you an idea. So these were my purpose statements. I want to support and help those feeling stuck in their jobs to find a career they love. Okay, And how do I do it? I help them mainly through group workshops or inclusive or in exclusive personalized coaching sessions. Right? So that was my purpose statement. Now, how did I craft this purpose statement? I basically use a very simple template, something like this, right? You would see in your handout as well. Okay, so let me go to that. See, is this part here? Is this part? All right. So let me sort of elaborate on this. So here, the template is very simple. Okay. So you have this verb that says, whatever value you want to provide. So here, in this case, I put an example, there's support. Okay. People, okay, or the customers. Okay, who are the people that you want to work with? Okay, so here it could be SMEs, it could be organizations, it could be maybe a particular type of people, right? And how do we do this? All right, so some of the key activities that you'll be doing. All right, so these are purpose statements that I think it'd be very useful at some point that you craft for yourself. Okay, so that gives you some, the North Star that Tim Cook was talking about, where you can say, okay, no matter the difficulties, I'm still looking at my purpose statements. For example, in my job, right, it's by no means easy when I'm coaching people, when I'm working with organizations, where I'm doing workshops like this. Large part of it I enjoy, is my passion, but also parts of it is not easy. So I have this purpose statements, I have this sense of purpose that helps me overcome the hurdles that sometimes I face. Okay, so why am I doing this? Oh, my purpose statement is I really want to help these people. Okay, and how do I do this? Okay, so maybe the analogy is very simple. We can identify, if we can identify our passion, that's great. Okay, but I think at the very least, we need to identify is why are we doing this, our sense of purpose. And the way we, and purpose helps us to overcome resistance, to overcome difficulties, to overcome challenges. And maybe it buys us time to identify what our passion could be as well, for those of you who are not sure of that yet. Does it make sense to you all? Hopefully it does, okay, because that's how I use mine. Because it wasn't, I did not identify my role now, coaching people. I never identified that early on. Okay, it was only later on, then I discovered that, hey, when I started thinking about the things that I wanted to do, I looked back at the things that I enjoyed and wanted to do. Then I realized that, hey, this is something that I'm good at. All right, I deliver value because from feedback from people that I've worked with, right? And so at the same time, I said, hey, that gives me purpose because people appreciate it. I see the improvements that within the people that I help. And that gave me a lot of satisfaction, even though it was not easy. It wasn't easy, right? But it gave me a lot of satisfaction. And that became my purpose statement. And from there, it helped me buy me time to actually identify, actually, that's also my passion. Okay, so that's how I worked it out. You may come from it from a slightly different angle, but maybe there's another way for you to work around it. All right. Okay, good. So you can see from the workbook also, I've given some examples of words that you can use. All right. So like under the help verb, so it can be inspire, can be supporting, can be empathizing. Under the people side, it could be professionals, it could be recent graduates, it could be young creatives. Then by doing how you do, it can be making, it can be organizing, it can be nurturing, all those statements that you can do. So I want to urge you, maybe during lunchtime or whatever, give it a try. Give it a try and write down your purpose statements. Now, I'm not going to ask you to type it out later on, because I think this is something very personal. But I think by trying it out, putting it down on paper, right, it helps you crystallize things much more clearly. And by no means, whatever you put down today is the final one. You could retune it, right? It can be adjusted along the way as well, especially when you start thinking more and more about it along these lines. Is that okay? All right. Okay, so I'm done talking about purpose. All right, so let's move on to the next one. Okay, the next one here is really about how we work. All right, so you know, this one should be something that I think many of you would be familiar with this, okay? So there's this notion that the way we find a satisfying career is really to find something that matches with our interests, okay? So this notion was actually, how should I clarified and explained and elaborated by this guy called John Holland, right? So basically he said people work best in environments that matches their preference. Very intuitive, right? I mean, we all understand this one. If we in an environment where we find that, oh, I mean, I've seen some of your comments here as well, where you say, well, you know, I really don't like what I'm doing and all that. Obviously, then it won't work, okay? And the way John Holland went about finding this out, helping us, which is still valid today, is really looking at what are we interested in? What are we interested in? And then from there, finding a career that perhaps matches our interests. And he uses this particular technique, okay, called the Holland Code, or the for those of you who have tried it, the RIASEC. Okay, so here he basically says that people can probably be divided into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 categories, a combination of 6 categories. So there are people who are the realistic part, the R. Okay, you can see the top at the R, where people are more realistic, are more hands-on, the doers, I call it. All right. Then you have the investigative, okay, the people who like to do more research, perhaps more digging, more information, rather than working with objects. Okay, so these are the thinkers. Artistic people, I think the name suggests, right? You're very creative, you're very expressive, you like to think out of the box. Okay, social. Okay, those of you who like working with people, helping people. Okay, this is the helpers. Okay, enterprising. Okay, right at the bottom left corner. Enterprising are people who, especially those of you who are starting a business or who want to start a business, if you have a very high enterprising quotient, then you may be in the right place, okay? Or those of you who like leadership positions, okay? They're the persuaders, I call it, all right? Then the conventional, right? It comes full circle, the pink color one, right? That's about being structured, being organized, right? The organizers, right? So you can probably see some of your characteristics here, right? What John Holland said is that there's really a combination of at least 3 of these, or probably 2 or 3 of these, okay? So has any of you, those of you who have gone through and done this particular exercise, getting your RISAC code, can you type it into the chat box? What do you think your code is? So that I know, I'm just trying to see if anybody has done it before. If the majority of you have not done it before, then maybe we can do this over the next few minutes. Anybody has done this exercise before? The RISAC code from one of the websites? Thank you, Floyd. I'm actually going to show the link pretty soon in the next slide, actually. But thanks, Floyd, for bringing that up. Okay, it looks like I mean, I don't, from the lack of response in the chat box, probably many people have not done it yet. So why don't we go through this particular exercise? Those of you who have done it, okay, maybe, you know, depending on when you did it, you can do it again. All right, so let me copy and paste the link. You can see in the website, okay, copy. I think, yeah, Floyd has pasted that. I don't know, how come your link is so long? All right, so that's the link there. So let me go into the page itself. All right, so you will see when you click on that link, you bring you to this page. Okay, you bring you to this page. So you want to go to this particular box here, right? This particular box, right? And then you click on it. Then you see down here below, okay, a few options to do. What I'd like you to do over the next maybe 10 minutes or so before we break up for lunch is really just take this career interest portion. All right, so if you click on that, you need to use the SingPass. You need to use the SingPass. All right, so when you're answering the questions, all right, so what you need to understand is this. When you're answering the questions, you should be based on interest. whether you're interested in that particular activity, not whether you are good or bad at it. All right. So don't make the mistake, because some people tend to confuse interest with whether you are competent in it. So please don't do that. Please don't do that. Okay. So fill in the questions. I think there are probably about 20 plus questions. I'm not sure whether they've increased or changed it. So it shouldn't take more than 10 minutes for you to do so. All right. So at the end of those questions, you would be getting at least a 2 or 3 letter code, at least a 3-letter code. Right. So you can see here, this is my code that was a result of me taking this test about a couple of years ago. I'm going to explain to you why it was in that particular order. Okay, EAS, enterprising. Okay, Hilda says, is this assessment valid for whole life? Okay, Hilda, let me ask you, because we are basing the questionnaires, answering the question based on interest, would your interest change? Would your interest change? I think the answer is yes, right? So that's my answer to you.
According to the life stage.
Correct. It could be that. Yeah. So as long as your interest can evolve, right? For example, for me, when I filled this up, EAS a couple of years ago, the reason why enterprising was high was because I was involved in some aspects of my business. So therefore, E was high. So that was my interest at that time. Okay. If you ask me to fill this up now when my business is stable already, my E is probably not going to be so high. It's probably going to be still there, but probably S and A is probably going to be stronger. Okay, so it all depends on your stage at that point in time. So whatever you do, when you do this particular exercise and this assessment, it is valid at that point in time that you took it. Okay, so if you've taken the test, let's say more than 6 months ago, I would strongly suggest you take it again. Okay, so that it gives you an idea of where you are now, because interests change. Okay, thank you, Hilda, for raising that. I think that's a very important question. So I'm going to give you all 10 minutes, okay? 10 minutes, and then we come back and then we continue the discussion, all right? So let me just give the 10-minute mark there. Hello, hello. Welcome back. Hope you had a fun time doing the little exercise. All right. Thank you so much to those of you who have shared with me in the chat box what your results are. Very interesting results, by the way. Now, those of you who don't want to share, that's fine. Okay. I think the whole idea here is this is something for yourself. All right. So I'm going to try to attempt to help you interpret your results. Okay, but a couple of things I need you all to understand first. Okay, thank you so much, all of you, putting some more results on the chat box. A couple of things I need you all to understand first. Okay, number one, obviously, hopefully you all have filled in or answered the questions based on your interest, not how good or how bad you are in those things. Okay, very, very important, because this is not about competency, this is about interest. Because competency you can learn. If you're interested in something, you bound to have the motivation to go and learn. Okay, so it is based on interest. All right. Then the next thing I need to highlight here is this. Whatever results you get, whether it's IAR, SEC, ASE, or whatever, the thing here is that you have to feel comfortable with the results. All right. So it is not about you thinking, oh, Lama, those results give me SEC, therefore I must be an SEC, even though you don't think you are an SEC. All right. So this is where the interpretation comes in, which I'll try to attempt to do so in the next slide. So just remember this. So if the results give you something that you find that, hey, it seems strange to me, don't be perturbed by this, okay? Because at the end of the day, you must feel comfortable about how it describes your interest. Okay, so that is the key thing here. Are we okay with this? All right, so let me attempt to interpret the results for you so that then you can see whether it is you or not. If it's not you, then maybe you want to decide that is something else, another predominant characteristic is you. All right, so let me go through this. Hopefully you all can see this. So you can see at the column, at the row at the top, it says RIA, SEC. Those are the letters that you should have. Okay, so some of you have actually got a stroke a slash rather in between, right? So I think there was one, let me just take a look at, there's one, a couple of you, there's ICS, ISE, all right? And then, yeah. So those, when it's a slash, it means the letter between the two slashes are the same score. So you're equally dominant in those two areas. So for example, if your slash is I/CS, means your I and your C, right, is predominantly is strong, similarly strong, okay? All right, so let me go through this with you. All right, you can see here, those of you who have got a high R, realistic, basically, like I said, you like working with things, right? So the characteristics here, the personality is you're frank, you're practical, you like to work with your hands. Okay, you like to work with your hands, you like to use things. So you are a doer, right? Like I mentioned, you are a doer. So the values that you see there. So possible jobs here could be things that are really more involved with hands. What can you think of for jobs that are very hands-on? What do you think? Anybody can type into the chat box. What do you think are some of the jobs that require you a lot of physical activity, using your body, using your hands? Baker, yeah, could be one. All right. Engineer, technician, yeah, it could be that. Interesting about baker, okay, I've also asked the same question. Somebody else also liked baking, all right? But he liked it not because he used his hands, although that's part of it, but he also liked it because it allowed him to be creative. So the A also comes in, right? So Floyd says arts and crafts, yeah, manipulating and creating something, but that could also be an A element, artistic, okay? So that's why there's a combination of things inside there. So let me move on. So R, I, investigative. So working with things and ideas. So you are the idea person, right? So sometimes, you're very curious, you're logical, you're analytical, and you like to research, you like to dig into things, you like to analyze things, okay? You like to investigate things, okay? So what do you think are some of the possible jobs that have got that nature? Those of you who have got a high I think I see a couple of people. What do you think are some of the possible jobs that might appeal to you if you have a high I? What do you guys think? You can type into the chat box. No? You like to investigate, you like to analyze. A typical one could be what, analysts, yeah, R&D, right? Auditors could be one as well. Okay, doing research, yeah. Okay, so some of the possible things, dealing with data and numbers. Yes, right. You're right, Mel. Okay, dealing with data and numbers. Next one, A, artistic. As the name suggests, it's actually quite easy, right? So you like to create things. Sometimes you like to work with ideas and people, all right? So you're imaginative, you like to think out of the box. You like to innovate, you like to adapt. So self-expression is a very strong part of your life, the way you do things. So what do you guys think? If you have a high A element, what type of jobs would suit you? What type of jobs would suit you? Just now somebody mentioned baking as a R, right? You could also be an A there as well. If you like baking, especially those high-end baking, you like to create a lot of funny things, right? Designer, Floyd said, yeah, designer. Okay, designer could also involve a lot of numbers, right? Architects, think about architects. Architects, you work a lot with numbers, but at the same time, you're very creative, right? So I and A is very strong there. Interior designer, yes. Interior designer, very artistic, but you also need to be very practical as well, right? You need to be very practical. And when it comes to interior designer, you're also very organized. So that's where the convention comes in, which I'll talk about later on, all right? Yeah, so if you look at it, a lot of the jobs doesn't just involve one characteristic, it involves a combination of characteristics, okay? Social, working with people, okay? You are helpful, you're kind, you're empathetic, you like to communicate and relate with other people, you're helping, guiding, and such, okay? So you like harmony, your social justice, okay? So as you can probably guess, one of my elements here is I have a high S inside there, okay? So social worker, customer service, training, and all that, yeah? Counselor, mentoring. Let me ask you, I had a client who was a teacher. She was a teacher for 20 years, 20 odd years, and she was became a head of department. Okay, so when I asked her what appealed to her when she was teaching, what do you think she said? Any guesses? What do you think she said? Teaching. What do you think she said? right? Which actually took me by surprise at that time. But now thinking back about it, I can understand. She said she loved teaching, all right, because it allowed her to influence and control people. Can you imagine that? Right? It took me aback. Because normally when you ask a teacher, right, why do you love teaching? So, oh, I like to work with young people. I like to help them become good citizens and that sort of thing. But her answer took me back. Then I realized, hey, actually maybe is that because she's a head of department, right? She reached as a head of department. Okay, so I actually half expected her to have a high S element. S is still there, okay, but she also have a high E, enterprising. Okay, enterprising people are people working with data and people. They like to influence, they like to persuade people, they like to lead, they like to organize. Okay, so in this case, the teacher had a very high E element, although the S also was still there. Okay, so what do you think? Those with high E element, what type of jobs are applicable for people who have got very strong E? Anyone? Can you think of it? Boss, yeah, right? Supervisors, leaders, right? Politicians, okay? Entrepreneur, yes, Augustus, correct. Okay, project manager could be high E, but you're also very organized, right? Project manager actually very organized, right? CEO, yeah, could be, but some CEOs actually, as a CEO, I feel as a CEO, you need to have a high S element as well. Okay, so you cannot ignore that. All right, which comes to the C, the conventional. All right, here you like working with data and things. Okay, you're careful, you're accurate, you're organized. You like to organize and arrange things according. So you're very procedural. Secretary, okay, Linda, yes, secretary is one of them. But at the same time, secretary also needs to be have a high S element, right? Social. Because you need to be able to interact with people. I know someone who is the PA to the DCEO, right? And yes, she is very high C, but she's also very high S. She knows how to interact with people and get things done, how to influence people. So S, E, and C is also inside there if you are a PA to maybe someone senior. Okay, so C, librarians. What about librarians? Maybe in the old days, librarians, yeah, you need to organize, you need to be very procedural. But nowadays, are librarians only just C, right? They could also involve other things, right? So, okay, administrator. Lina says majority of companies like people with high C, easier to control them. Okay, well, that's probably another way to look at things. All right. So now I've explained these things. So in your mind, you have to start thinking, okay, whatever code you have, right? Do you agree with that? If you feel that you don't agree, it's fine. Okay, maybe for some reason when you answer the question, it sort of skewed the results inside. It's okay. So you just try to understand based on what I've just explained just now, the RAASEC, what code do you feel you should have the predominant qualities in there, right? And then you work from there. The reason why I say this is important is very simple, because those of you who have gone the next step after getting the 3 codes, you would have seen that they generate possible jobs, okay? And the reason why they generate the jobs is because the jobs match the code that the results that you got, all right? So if you don't agree with your code, then the jobs may not be agreeable with you, all right? But at the same time, even if you do agree with the code, okay, sometimes the job may think, hey, that doesn't make sense. Okay, let me give you an example. When I did my test, EAC, my result was EAC, right? But when the result generated some jobs, one of the jobs that they actually created for me was bartending. Then I looked at it, oh, one of the jobs was bartending. Then I looked at it and said, oh, interesting. But then as a trained coach, right? Then I realized why it generated that as a possible job option. If you look at it, what does a bartender do? Okay, what does a bartender do? A bartender works behind, right? Behind the bar counter. They tend to, they work with a lot of people, right? So they're very organized. They're very, when somebody orders drinks, they're very enterprising. They try and do things on their own. Sometimes, a lot of time, the bartender is working alone behind, or maybe 1 or 2 persons. So they need to take initiative a lot, right? At the same time, they need to be able to work with people. So the S element is there. But then those of you who have done bartending, I have done a bartending course, incidentally. Okay, I know what it takes. Bartending is not easy, It is actually a very difficult job. Okay, because you have to remember all the things, all the drink combinations. And then you have to be very creative also. Okay, especially those of bartenders who regularly create new drinks. Right? So the high A element is there. So you think about it, actually, when I thought about it that way, yeah, actually now I understand why they suggested to me the bartending job, because it fits the profile. So for those of you who have got very strange job recommendation, don't worry so much about it. Just look at the nature of the job. What does it do, right? Does it agree with you? Then don't be so hard about the title, but look at the nature of the job. And then maybe you look at, when you go forward and look at careers and jobs, you look at what they do, what is the nature, rather than looking at the title. Whew. Is that okay? Is that okay? I talked a lot for this, but so hopefully you'll understand. Any questions before I move on to the next portion? So actually, this whole workshop is a bit like I'm coaching you guys. You guys are with the result, I'm trying to coach you one-on-one. But since there's about, how many of you are there now? About 50 people. Okay, Mel says, should we redo if you do not agree with the results? Yes, Mel, you can if you want to, but I'm just worried that, if let's say you redo again and then the results come out, you don't agree again, then you keep redoing until you get the result that you want, then that defeats the purpose. So what I'd rather do, if I were you, is that then I try to understand this table here. Okay, I try to understand this table and say, okay, maybe I'm actually more fitting into another combination. Then from there, then you start thinking what type of jobs will give me that sort of combination or fit the combination. Is that okay, Mel? Right? Obviously, you can also do it if you want to, but but the danger here is that if you keep doing it and then it keeps coming out with a result that you don't agree, then you will keep on doing it until you get something. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy already. Okay? All right. Any questions on this? Any questions on this process? This is a very simple thing and it's very valid. And so that's why, the WSG put it into the website for everybody to try. But the danger here is that you need to be able to interpret it in a more all-round manner. Mel says to complete this time given is about 10 minutes or more. Actually, you can take as long as you want, right? But normally people tend to finish it within 10 minutes or maybe slightly longer. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so I think we can do one more before we break for lunch. Okay, so let me do this. So we've done purpose, we've done how we work. Okay, so now let's take a look at how you help people. Now, for those of you who have been to my past workshops before, you've probably done this already, but let me go through those people who have not done it with me before. All right, so how you help people, whoops, all right, is basically, I'm going back to this particular slide, all right, where it says, about how you measure success. So how you help people and what needs do you fulfill. Okay, so that is the slide I'm going to refer to. At the end of the day, you want to position yourself as someone who solves problems for other people, because this is your value add. Okay, so you should be looking at yourself as a problem solver. Okay, so again, maybe a new concept for some of you. Look at yourself as a problem solver. So how do we then look ourselves? How do we then say, oh, what problems can I solve and all that? So before you go out and tell people you can solve this problem, you need to understand what skill sets you have. Okay, now I want to go beyond this simple notion of hard skills, soft skills, right? I want to go beyond that and really take a deeper look at how you classify your skills according to this spectrum that you see. It's also in the table, in the handout. Let me just go to that page. Yeah, it's on page 14. You see here, page 14. Okay, so as I go along, you can just type in your comments and your thoughts in this. Okay, so in this particular table, it is about describing things that you are good at. That means your competency level, right? Which is at the top. You see the blue one. I'm not good at this. I'm good at this, right? So here, okay. Versus things that you like to do and you don't like to do. So maybe here is the interest level. So here is the interest. Here are the things that you are good at, your competency. All right. So now we're going to go box by box. All right. And then from there, as I explain in each box, I want you to start filling up in that particular box. What are the skills that are relevant in that box for you? All right. So let's start with the purple box now. Purple box, I am good at this and I like to do this. Okay. So it is like the nirvana of skill sets, right? You have a skill set that you're good at and you love to use. Okay. So think about this. What are the skill sets that you have that you're good at and you love to do? Okay, for me, when I look at this, the one that jumps out to me was that I'm actually very organized and I also like working with people. Okay, and I've been told that I'm pretty good at this. Okay, so that is my purple box skills. What are your skills in that box? What are your skills in that box? Now, there's a term that we use for skills that are categorized in this. We call it the motivated skills. Motivated skills. Because these are skills that we love to use all the time. Because we know we are good at this and because we love to do it. Okay? So what are your motivated skills? What are your motivated skills? If anybody would like to share their motivated skills in the chat box, by all means do so. But I hope at the minimum you type it into the worksheet, the workbook, so that you capture the thoughts there while we're talking, while we're discussing this. Huh? So what are your motivated skills? What are your motivated skills? Skills that you are good at as well as you like to do. Okay, Gary says fixer, rainmaker. Okay, interesting. You know, Gary, one of the things that you probably get is that when you tell people you are a rainmaker, they will probably ask you to explain more. All right, so you got to be prepared to explain that. Huh? Fixer, okay, good. All right, so what are you good at and what do you like to do? So hopefully you started putting that in. Okay, so let's talk about the red box now. The red box, okay? Red box is what? I'm good at this. Oh, thank you, Augustus, sorry. Listener, storyteller. Linda says reconciliation. Oh, very good. Okay. So let's talk about the red box now. The red box. Okay. I'm good at this, but I don't like to do it. I'm good at this, but I don't like to do this. Now, for me personally, right, I've been told that I was a good number chaser. I managed P&L well. Okay, I always achieve or overachieve my targets. But personally, I hated doing this. I hated the stress of chasing numbers. I don't know whether any of you can relate to this or not. I hated this. So this is my burnout, or this was my burnout skill. So do you have any burnout skills? Okay. Type into the worksheet or typing into the chat box or whatever, whether you have any burnout skills. Skills that you know you're good at, but you get stressed out doing it and therefore you don't like to use it. Okay. I remember when I was working with a senior manager, he listed down that managing people was his burnout skill. So interesting, right? You are a senior manager, you are supposed to manage people, and yet that is your burnout skill. Right. So it stressed him out managing people. And sometimes I tend to think that, managing and working with people can be very stressful as well, right? Okay. So think about what your burnout skills are. Okay, Gary, routine is not a skill. Routine is a process. Maybe what's the skill? What is the difficulty in the routine part? Okay. Linda, chasing people for documents. Maybe again, Linda, skills. Okay, chasing people. Maybe it's administrative follow-ups. Yeah, that's a thing. Okay, good. But I think you're thinking along the correct way. Okay, doing the same thing over and over again. So yeah, okay. Sometimes we have to think, we have to maybe try and differentiate between job nature versus our skill set. So sometimes, like for example, Gary, you put down there doing the same thing over and over again, it's a job nature, but maybe it's not a skill. Okay, maybe it's not a skill. Okay, Yvonne, I think, if you say you can't think of any, doesn't matter. If you don't have any burnout skills, that's fine. Right? I'm not saying that everybody must have. Okay. What I'm saying here is that if you can think about it later on, again, maybe not today, but if you think through it, maybe later on, at some point you think, oh yeah, I'm good at this, but I don't like to do it, then you can classify that as a burnout skill. All right. So don't have to worry if you don't have anything in there right now. I'm just going through that. Okay. So burnout skills. Next one, orange box. Orange box is what? I'm not good at this, but I like to do it. I'm not good at this, but I like to do it. Now, for me, a few months ago, when I was going through, I was rethinking, how am I going to up the game in doing online workshops like this? Okay. So what you see now was actually a process of experimentation and actually trying out new things. So I really enjoyed the whole process. But I wasn't very good at it, so I had to learn. Okay. So this was something that I had to develop over time. So I developed this this technique of presenting, of creating PowerPoint slides like this, of putting out into Zoom that you can see me and all that, so that I increase engagement. So that was something I had to learn along the way. Okay, but I really enjoyed doing it. Okay, so hopefully you see the benefit of this. Right? So, so what are your developmental skills? Something that you like to do, but you're not good at it. So you want to learn. You want to learn how to do it. Oh, interesting. Linda says calendar management on different time zones. Okay, interesting. Okay, so I'm sure all of us have got skills like this. How to manage a boss? That's a burnout skill. Probably. I know to me, it's probably a burnout skill as well. Although, some people are good at it, but I don't like managing bosses. Okay. So, not good at this. So what are your developmental skills? So developmental skills essentially are skills that you want to learn. You want to improve. Okay. Swen says managing people. Great. You want to learn more about that. That's good. Okay. Training and development, Augusta's saying. Okay. Training and development skill. Good. All right. So let's talk about the last one. the dark gray box, or the black box. Some of you may see as black box. You're not good at this and you don't like to do it. So what does it mean? Okay. At the end of the day, if you're not good at it and you don't like doing this, chances are you probably won't use it. And therefore, to many people, it is irrelevant. Okay. So then maybe it's not something that you want to focus too much on. Although I'm not saying that you may not use it. Sometimes there are jobs may force you to do this. Okay. Then the question here is this: if in your job or in your career that you are embarking on now, you have a lot of skills that you need to use in this blue box, right? Then maybe it's something you need to think about. How you're going to manage this. Okay. So now, okay, the reasons why I wanted you to go through this exercise in classifying your skill sets is really two reasons. Number one, obviously, is to make sure you understand what type of skills you have, so that you know which type of skills you need to use in order to solve problems for other people, which I'm going to come to in a little while. Okay, but at the same time, I want you to also realize that when you're looking at a new job or a new career, okay, there is no job. I'm going to put this down on the table. There is no job that allows you to do 100% motivated skills. There is no job that allows you to use 100% of the time only motivated skills. There's always going to be some part of the job that will make you use either burnout skills, developmental skills, or irrelevant skills. All right. So please, please, please don't go and say, oh, Mr. Lim, or you would told me that I need to find jobs that allow me to use motivated skills only. No, I want you to be aware that there are jobs which will make you use a combination of all these. Okay. So the question in your mind, if your job, right, makes you work more burnout skills than motivated skills, I'm not saying you quit, but I'm saying that how can you manage this? Okay, how can you manage this? Because we're going to come back to this afternoon when we're talking about redesigning. Okay, so that's very important. Huh? Okay, so 2 reasons why I asked you to do this particular exercise. One, obviously, is to understand what skills you have and what skills you can use or like to use in order to solve problems. Okay, because if you have skills, there are a lot of skills that you put in the developmental box, in the developmental category in the orange one. Huh? Then maybe you want to go and say, okay, I want to learn more. I want to go for training. I want to learn more about those skills so that I can use that to help people solve problems. Okay. The second reason for going through this exercise is then to also get you to understand that, you know, in your current job or in your new job that you intend to go for, what are the variety of skills you need to use? How can you manage this variety if one category is causing you concerns? Okay, so it's recognition of these skills. Are we okay with this? Are we okay with this? If you are, can you type into the chat box, say yes, okay, or if you have some concerns, by all means, let me know as well. Okay, good. So now you've done this, you have classified your skills. Okay, so let's talk about how then you identify what problems you solve. And now this is very fundamental. I don't think many coaches actually ask you to look at this. All right, but to me, this is very fundamental. Very, very fundamental, because if you can identify what problems you solve, how you help people, this really becomes your branding, becomes your unique selling point, USP. So to me, this is actually very, very important. All of us should know how to identify this. So I'm going to go through you a process to identify this. Okay, so very, very important. Huh? So those of you again who's been to my past workshops, you have seen this already. So let me just go through very quickly. So these are just some examples of problem-solving statements that my clients have come up with using the same method that I'm going to teach you in the next slide. Okay, so I will solve your high staff turnover issue. How do I do this? Extensive people management experience and a successful track record of building effective teams. Okay, so that's a problem-solving statement. I will help you expand your brand presence internationally with a lower marketing budget. How do I do this? In my previous roles, I leveraged on non-traditional marketing strategies which have greater ROIs and impactful results. I'll show you how you can actually craft those statements. I will increase the quality of your MBA student intake, or maybe increase the quality of your customers. How do I do this? In my past roles, I moved the customer base to a higher level by recrafting outreach messages and targeting the right segments. Okay, so these are problem-solving statements you can share either in your LinkedIn profile, in your CV, or maybe in your interview. Okay, so how do you do this? How do you get this? All right, so in the worksheet, if I pull up the worksheet, okay, you see this page on page 15, here. All right, I'm going to go through this table with you. All right, and then I would suggest that over lunchtime, we're just approaching lunch now. Over lunchtime, you try and craft at least 1 to 2 problem-solving statements. Okay, so firstly, knowing what skills you have. Just now you went through the exercise already, right? Knowing what skills you have. Doesn't matter which category it is, right? Just maybe plug in something that you enjoy doing and you're good at, okay? Which is the motivated skills. So let's say you have this set of skills, people and team management skills. You're good at this, you enjoy doing this. So you want to highlight this, okay? So if you have people and team management skills, can you tell me, type into the chat box, what problems do you solve if you have good people and team management skills? Can anybody type into the chat box? what problems can you solve if you have good people and team management? You solve conflict resolution, okay? Any other problems that you can solve if you have strong people and team management? So conflicts in difficult people. How do you solve difficult people? What is the result of having difficult people? Time and work management, manpower allocation. Okay, so I want you all to sort of differentiate between process and problem. Okay, so like for example, build partnerships and lead projects. Is that the problem or is that the process? Okay, manage teams, teamwork spirit in the team. Is that a process or is that a problem? Okay, ambiguity is a problem. Okay, conflict is a problem. Okay, so I want you to understand the difference between process and problem. All right, so that's very important. So don't confuse the two. Okay, so in this case, one example could be you minimize or solve high staff turnover. Okay, high staff turnover. All right, so the thing here now, so you got to be very specific. What is the problem that you can solve with your skills? What is the problem you can solve with your skills? Then you start thinking how I solve the problems, which some of you have gone into detail. Okay, so how do I solve high staff turnover? How do I solve high staff turnover? By building effective environment, focusing on individual member strengths and pulling them in the motivated direction. Okay, so I want you to differentiate. I want you to differentiate. Okay, very, very important. Because if, okay, the main purpose, the main reason why I want you to identify problem, be very clear about what the problems are, is that next time when you go about searching for a new job or a new company to join, one of the fastest way for you to impress them is for you to identify, firstly, what their problem is and how you can help them. All right, so you go straight away and tell them, okay, I understand you have this problem. I have this skill set that helps you. So it is very important you know what problems you solve. Okay, don't jump into the process, because by jumping in the process, you are missing out what problems you solve. Very good, you have the process, but you need to be very explicit about what problems you solve. Is that okay? All right. So I want you to think about this very, very carefully over lunch. Okay, over lunch. Any questions before I break you all off for lunch? Okay, so it is now 11:50. All right. So what I'd like you to do, okay, we're going to have lunch and we'll come back at 1 p.m. Okay, 1 p.m. So in that time, what I'd like you to do, obviously apart from having lunch, I want you to give it a try, writing down problem-solving statements using this table here. Write down at least one. Give it a try. Okay, when we come back, maybe you can just put it into the chat box later on when we come back, and then I can help you and see whether you need to tweak a bit or fine-tune a bit. Is that all right? Okay, so have a good lunch, try this process out, okay, and then we come back and we discuss again. All right, okay, what time do we come back? We come back at 1 p.m. We come back at 1 p.m. Okay, now it's 11:50. We come back at 1 p.m. Okay, all right, you guys, you don't have to log off. You can stay logged in. All right, if you log off, then the event people will have to let you in again. All right, so if you stay logged in, you will still be here. Okay, I see you guys at 1 p.m. All right, ciao. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome back. How is everyone? Are you okay? If you're back and had lunch, can you all do me a favor? Either turn on your microphone and say hi, or you turn on your video cam and wave at everybody in the group. Either say hi or wave at everybody. Yay! See, you all can see each other already, right?
Hi.
Hello, good to see everybody's faces. Wow, this is nice. Actually, I like the smaller group rather than the webinar. Webinar usually is about 200. Hello, Louise. Good. I like this style of class because it's smaller, then you can see everybody. Whereas the webinar, I got to scroll through a few screens before I can see everybody. So it's good. Okay, good. Hope you all had a good lunch. All right. So all ready to move on. Today is Friday afternoon. And I was looking out the window, and then I think I saw Mark's camera was on when he was walking outside. What nice sunny day outside, man. So hopefully today we try and finish chop, and then you all can go out and enjoy the rest of the sun. Okay, because I think every day has been raining too much now. Huh? Okay, good. Okay, so I hope you all had a chance to do the little exercise. I think someone just sent to me what he did, so maybe I just want to share that just to give you an idea of some of the things that you can write there. Huh? So let me just put this down. Okay, so thank you to Gary who sent this in, and then he gave us an example, which I think is a good example, right? So his skills are stakeholder engagement. And then the problems he solved: failure to achieve desired outcomes because of a lack of engagement, collaboration, communication, poor customer satisfaction, poor brand reputation, low client acquisition. So a lot of problems that he can solve. Now, how does he solve this? Okay, so basically, servant leadership using agile methodologies to motivate and empower high performance engagement so that each stakeholder can be the best version of themselves, excel professionally, and collaborate effectively. Example, going the extra mile and generating trust to build brand equity, deploying conversion rate optimization. So a lot of very technical terms, which I think should be relevant to the person or the company that he's targeting at. So I think this is good because he clearly identifies the problem, and because this problem actually is very important. You need to know how to solve. What is the problem you're solving, or problems you're solving, and then how you solve it. Okay. So I don't know if anybody wants to also share their statement so that we can I can help you with it. If not, then I'll move on. So I think the important thing, again, I want to emphasize to all of you, okay, when you're doing this, is just to make sure that you differentiate how you solve the problem here with the problem that you solve. Okay, so in other words, you need to be able to identify the problem. Okay, this is very important because there are many ways to solve the problem. So if you can identify the problem, then you can think about how you solve the problem separately. All right. So for example, minimize or solve high staff turnover. You can be solved by other ways, or rather than just people and team management, right? Okay, it could be better pay, for example, or if you're a CFO or HR person, hire the right people. Okay, so make sure when you're writing problem statements like this that you are able to identify the problems first. Okay, all right, good. Anybody got any questions regarding this little exercise? Anybody, before I move on to the next one? Okay, don't have, then I'll move on. All right, so okay, so this morning we've done quite a lot. Okay, so we've gone through the purpose statements, we've gone through how we work, and then we've gone through how we solve problems. Okay, so the last bit, which is I think a really nice way to round off the things that we need to have when we are establishing our professional identity, is basically what type of attitude or mindset should we have. Okay, so now I want you to think on your own basis. I want you to think. So imagine your own career is your own business. Okay, for those of you who are already entrepreneurs, this might not be too difficult for you. But for the majority of us, let's think about this. If my career was my own business, what sort of mentality or attitude should I have? How should I approach my career? If my career is my own business, how should I approach it? What sort of mentality I should have? What sort of mindset should I have? Can you type into the chat box what you think, what sort of mindset you think you should have if your career was your own business? Can you type into the chat box? Let's see. Customer base, growth mindset, customer-oriented growth mindset. Anything else? I like this a bit about growth mindset. Yeah. Just imagine if this was your own business. Be creative. Okay. Accountability, I like that. Forward thinking mindset. Okay. Moving forward. Adaptable. Keep improving the standard, setting high benchmark. Positive, okay, being very positive. Any others? Okay. Oh, creating value, reliable and sustainable. People-oriented openers keep going, especially when there's barriers and challenges, right? Market relevance, have drive. All right, very good. Thank you so much for sharing. I think a lot of you have got really, really good points there. Okay, what I want to do is maybe take some of those and put it into categories, which I think a lot of them fall into the same common categories. Thank you, Grace, putting yourself in the customer's shoes, right? Okay, so the first thing I feel that is really, really important if your career is your own business is this idea, all right, that you want to anticipate change. You want to anticipate change, and at the end of the day, whatever job you do, okay, is temporary. Okay, so what happens when you treat your job as temporary? In other words, you actually do a lot more, you know. If you think that a job is permanent, you tend to be complacent. So if job is temporary, you change your mindset, you become a lot more active, you're preparing yourself for the next job. So you're actually putting yourself forward and improving yourself, like what many of you have said, making yourself relevant to the marketplace, okay? So you're anticipating change. Right? So I think that's one very important aspect. Okay. So what's the next thing? The next thing here is this. If it is your career, right? In other words, you are the business of one, right? You are one person, you are in charge of that business. Okay. So really, if you are in charge of that business, you must take charge. You must take control, right? You cannot let other people take charge for you because it's your own career. So in other words, similarly, you know, you long gone are the days where you think the company is going to take care of you. You think that the company is going to put you automatically to promotion after a certain number of years, or they're going to put you to training automatically. No longer are those days. Okay, maybe there are still some companies that do, but majority of companies don't do that anymore. So business of one, you want to take charge, take control of your own career. Okay. What's the next bit? We talked about this already. Be a problem solver. So once you become a problem solver, you become an asset to employers. You don't become a risk. I think those of you who've been to my previous workshop, I have often said, okay, employers by nature are risk averse. In other words, whenever they're hiring people, they want to take as little risk as possible. So they want to make sure they get the right person. Okay. If you put yourself across as a problem solver, as someone who can solve their problem, you become less of a risk, you become more of an asset. Okay, so becoming a problem solver, that's why I always keep emphasizing this notion, we need to identify what problems we can solve. So we become a problem solver. All right, so to me, these are the really three key activities or mindsets that we need to have. All right, very, very important. I just heard a noise. Did somebody want to ask any questions? Okay. So just to summarize this, so basically 3 areas which I think we all need to have. We anticipate change. Okay. We take charge. We are business of one, and we are a problem solver. Okay. And in essence, if we look at our own career as our own business, we actually adopt a very entrepreneurial mindset. Okay, so sense of purpose. When you are doing a business, you have a sense of purpose, right? You go through, you have passion, and then you really think about how you help people. Okay. Oops, I think there's still, maybe I should turn off all the mics. I still hear somebody talking. Let me just make sure everybody is there. Okay, so if you are unmiked, please mic yourself back. Okay, all right. Okay, so hopefully you understand this, because I think this is a really important aspect we need to understand. So again, at the end of the day, our career is our own responsibility, all right? In order for us to move forward, let's take charge of things. Let's make sure that we think in a very different way. Long gone are the days where we take things for granted. We can take things for granted. We cannot anymore. Okay, so we move forward. Okay, good. So we spent the last greater part of the morning and early part of this afternoon, really going through this notion of creating a professional identity. All right, so let's talk about the next portion. We go into redesigning, actually redesigning now our our career. Okay, so again, I just want to remind everyone that the whole purpose of going through so much effort in trying to establish what our identity is because this creates a benchmark for us. This sets a level. Unless we know what the benchmark is, we don't know what to change. So now that we know, now that you know what your benchmark is, what are your qualities, what's your identity, then it's easier for you to say, okay, maybe there are some aspects I need to change, whether it is in myself or whether it's in the environment that I work in. Okay, because we know what triggers us best. Right? So now we go into this whole notion of redesigning. So remember what we did this morning and just now the early part of this afternoon is we have sort of established what are the parameters of our identity. Okay, so that is the foundation, that is the basis that we're going to work on. So once we have that now, all right, now we go through this whole notion of redesigning. Those of you who are familiar with engineering and design thinking, so it's very similar. In fact, I borrow a lot of that from to here. Okay, so essentially the process involves redrawing, reflecting, revising, and testing, and then doing it all again, just to make sure everything falls into place. All right, so excuse me. So let's talk about the first two, which is drawing and reflecting. Okay, drawing basically means you draw up the plan, you draw up the blueprint for you to consider the new you, for example. Okay, so when you're doing this step, there are a couple of things that, or rather there are three things that you probably want to think about. Okay, so what are the three things that you want to think about? I would suggest this. Okay, firstly, examine your perspective, the way you are looking at things right now. Okay, is it correct or can you reframe it? Then secondly, you look at what are the things you can change, what are the things you cannot change. Okay, no point trying to redesign something or do something, change something that cannot be changed. No point spending effort and getting yourself frustrated. If the things are going to be there, you can't change it, then what's the point of putting effort in doing that? Okay. Then the last one, after you've considered perspective, after you've considered what are the things you can change, then you consider what are the possibilities you have on the table or the alternatives, as some coaches would like to put it. Okay, so these three elements here. Are we okay so far? Right. So looking at what sort of perspective you have, what are the things you can change, and then putting on the table what are the possibilities that you have, or the alternatives that you have. Okay, let's examine the first one, perspective. Now, why do I feel that perspective, the way you look at things, is important? Because if you really think about it, a lot of the time, we have an impression about something which may or may not be actual, right? Or we may have a perspective on things, something that we feel is very negative and is affecting the way we do things, okay? So what I'm suggesting here very strongly is that even before we start looking at changing anything or redesigning anything, is to start thinking, actually, am I looking at things in the wrong way? Can I look at things in a very different way? Okay, so really things like, rethinking. Okay, those of you who are familiar with NLP, this is something very familiar to you. Okay, can we rethink something? So for example, here, instead of saying that I don't know what's wrong with me, I can't seem to focus on anything, maybe, look at things. It's normal to have a lack of focus. Maybe it's a response to stress. So, but I'm doing the best I can. All right. So instead of looking at something negative and letting it affect you, is there another way to look at it positively? Now, the NLP people will know this very well. Okay, so there are essentially a couple of ways to look at this. Okay, so you can reframe the context that you are in or the content that you have. Okay, what do I mean by this? Okay, so those of you who are interested, you can refer to that URL now. So essentially, if you look at context itself, is there a way to represent a negative event or behavior in such a way that you have a positive value, or at least minimize the negativity? Okay, so that's context. I'll give you an example in a while, right? Or in terms of content, is there a way to make an event or behavior be seen in such a way that it would have value? Now, what do I mean by this? So, context reframing. So, if you are in a job that you hate or you really dislike, instead of being bogged down and focusing on all the necessary, or rather on all the negative things that you see, are you able to say, yeah, I really don't like my job, but there are actually things that I like about it as well. Maybe I should list down both the bad things and the good things, compare them and see, how it is. Okay, rather than just focusing on the bad things. You'll be surprised. Many a time when I go through with my clients, when they come to me and say, I really hate my job, blah, 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 and all that, they're focusing a lot on the negativity. Then when I sit down with them and think, okay, I think you're focusing on one part of it. Let's talk about all the other parts that you like. Right? There must be something that you liked which made you accept the job in the first place. So they start listing it down. And many a time you will find that, actually, maybe the job is actually not that bad. There's only one particular item that's causing me problems, and that's discoloring the way I look at things. Okay? So that's one aspect. So reframing the context that you are in. Right? Now, what about the content itself? Finding another way to make the event or the behavior be having some form of value, at least not so negative. Okay. So those of you who are having difficulty finding jobs, which I think I saw some comments there. Okay. Instead of saying I'm useless, I can't find a job. Okay. What about reframing it such that, the right job is out there. I just need to know where to look or how to look. Okay. And from there, maybe you say, I need to get help, get a coach, or learn how to do it. So rather than focusing on the difficulty, you focus on how you can overcome the difficulty. Is that okay? All right. So what I'd like you to do now, given that it's just after lunch, I want you to banish your what do you call it? The lunchtime coma. All right. To put your brain into some thinking order right now. Okay. If you look at your participant handout, let me just go down. See, all these things are the spaces you can look at. So this page here, page 19, okay? This part here, all right? So can you reframe? Can you reframe yourself? Okay? Can you reframe your context or your content right now? Okay? To make it look like, is there something that maybe is actually not that bad? Okay, and some possibility that actually maybe it is more positive than you thought it would be. Okay, so I want to give you the next 5 minutes or so. Try and put it down, because I think this is important, rather than jumping straight into the notion that I want to change everything, whether it's changing your career or changing your path or redesigning everything. I want you to make the effort to sit down and think, is it possible for me to look at things in a different way? Okay, so let's give it a try. Okay, 5 minutes, and then we come back to this. Okay, I see you in a bit. Okay, how was this? Did you have difficulty reframing your situation or the context that you are in, or your behavior? Well, if those of you who have a bit of difficulty, it's okay. It's natural to have difficulty, because sometimes you may need to sit down, bounce it off somebody. Okay, if you want to bounce it off, maybe your spouse or your partner, by all means do so. Okay, if later on, at the end of today, I'm going to give you a way to be able to reach out to me as well, so you can bounce it off me as well. Okay, after the workshop. Okay, so any questions before I begin to the next step? Go on to the next step. on this reframing part. Again, like I said, I think this is an important step we all need to make before we actually jump straight into making changes. Is to really examine if it's possible for us to look at things in a different way, rather than just jumping straight in and saying, I want to change everything. Okay, or I want to redesign everything. Okay, so that is the whole purpose. Okay, good. So we've gone through this reframing bit. If you have something that you can reframe, by all means, that's great. If you feel that maybe, things are still not looking so good, okay, let's look at some other possibilities, some other steps that you can do. Okay, so the next thing we look at is really looking at what sort of changes we can make in the redesign process. Okay, when we want to make changes, we are really focusing on things that we can control right now. We as in you, the person that's going to be affected by this. There's no point looking at making changes to things that's outside of your control. Correct? Okay, so in this case, what is really, really important is for you to be able to differentiate these types of things. Okay, so I'm going to teach you something that, again, is not new, but I just want to put it here. The first thing here is this. Are we able to identify problems which are what we call gravity problems? Now, what do we mean by gravity problems? Basically, it's problems that are outside of our control. No matter what we do, the problem cannot be solved. Just like gravity, right? Gravity is always going to be there unless you move to a different planet, but gravity will always be there. So there's no point wishing that you can fly and defy gravity, right? So if the Wright brothers kept thinking there's no way I can defy gravity, therefore I give up, they went around and looked at it differently. Okay, so here you need to start thinking, what are your gravity problems? Okay, things that is there but you cannot change, you cannot influence, you cannot control. Okay, for some of you, it may be your boss. You cannot control your boss, you cannot control him, or maybe it's the company that you're in, that they are operating in a bad economy, and maybe it's outside of your control to influence the way they operate in the economy. So why do we focus on that? There's no point focusing on that. So focus on what you can control. But the first thing here is this. Are you able to then differentiate between gravity problems? What are gravity problems? Okay. So that's one. Gravity problems are problems you cannot change. Right. Then the next step. What are then problems that you can change? Those problems are what we call anchor problems. What anchor problems? Basically, these are things that's holding you back, but they are controllable. You can, to some degree, influence and change this. Okay. So for example, I had a client whose one of their anchor problems was the fact that she wanted to meet more people in her job, but her job is very paper pushing, is very report driven and all that, right? So that is dragging her back. So she's identified that. So later on, I'm going to share with you how she actually modified that approach, how she redesigned that. Okay, but here you need to then look at what are the problems that you can control or change to some extent. Okay, anchor problems, but they're holding you back. All right, so these are anchor problems versus gravity problems. Okay, so again, same thing here. I believe it's inside the worksheet as well. There you see on the right hand side, gravity problems, anchor problems. Okay, so same thing here. I'd like you to spend the next 5 minutes or so, all right, using this and going through and listing down what your gravity problems are and your anchor problems are. Okay, now all the time, the reason why I want you to write it down is because the act of writing it down makes it more crystal clear to you. Okay, no point keeping it inside your head. When you keep inside your head, it's never going to come out. When it doesn't come out, then you can't action it. Then when it's kept inside here, you kept getting preoccupied with it, and then it start bothering you, and then maybe it's bothering you so much that you get depressed or whatever. Okay. All right, yes, thank you, Mel. It is anchor, A-N-C-H-O-R. Sorry, it's a typo. Okay, A-N-C-H-O-R. Okay, so spend the next 5 minutes, all right, listing down what is your gravity problem, what is your anchor problem. All right, I see you in a while. Okay, hope you all had a chance to consider what your gravity problems are and what your anchor problems are. Okay, so I just want to reiterate, I think there was a question from someone again, so let me reiterate what gravity problems are. Okay, gravity problems are basically problems which you cannot solve. Okay, which you cannot solve. So it's just like gravity. Whatever you do is always going to be there. All right. So, but you need to be very clear what those gravity problems are. So I'm going to give you an example. Okay, I had a client. Okay, she was working as an accountant in a company. Right, she joined the company about 4 years previous to that. Okay, the company was taken over by another company, bought over by another company. So she was worried. She was worried about her job security, what's going to happen. Right? So when I asked her, what are your gravity problems? What are your gravity problems? When she listed it down, one of the gravity problems is the fact that another company has taken over her parent company, her own company. So that's a gravity problem that she cannot change, right? The other gravity problem is the fact that she's going to have a new boss. She's going to have a new boss. Okay, so that's another part that cannot be changed, right? Anchor problems. Anchor problems are basically problems where there is some degree of influence, some degree of change you can make, all right? And these problems are basically holding you back from either enjoying your job or moving ahead, okay? So again, the same case and example from this client, that I asked her what her anchor problems, what were her anchor problems? So one of them was really not knowing what's the next step, how, what the next job is, or whether her job will be affected, okay? Another anchor problem was really, would she be able to adjust to the new boss, all right? Gravity problem is that she's going to have a new boss anyway, but the anchor problem here is whether she's able to adjust to the new boss, whether the new boss will accept her, okay? So the thing here now is this: can we separate the two? So I've got a couple of questions here. Okay, Yvonne asked, colleagues who are uncooperative, is that under the category of gravity problem? Again, it's up to you. I do not know the nature of why the people are uncooperative, okay? I don't feel that maybe it's by default they are uncooperative. There must be one reason behind it. Then you have to understand, are you able to adapt to the reasons why they are uncooperative? Okay, instead of focusing on their behavior, focus on why they are being like that, and then can you influence or change that? Then maybe that's how you categorize whether it's anchor or gravity. Okay. Lynette says, how do you identify gravity and anchor problems if we are out of a job? This applies to any situation, not just whether you're working or not working. So if you're out of a job, what is your anchor problem? All right. Is your anchor problem the fact that maybe for someone who's over 50, okay, maybe that's the anchor, that's the gravity problem. You can't change. You are over 50. So why focus on the fact that you're over 50 and not being able to do anything about it? Okay. So maybe the anchor problem is really, one is that you do not know what company will accept anyone over 50, or you do not know what type of jobs will be suitable for you, or you do not know what skills you need to have. Those are anchor problems which you can solve by doing certain things. Okay, so Lynette, hope that answers your question. Okay, Wang Chengding asked, is it difficult to accept new challenge as afraid cannot deliver things properly, anchor or gravity problem? Okay, again here, you cannot accept new challenge or you're afraid that you cannot deliver. To me, it is an anchor problem because it can be solved. Okay, because it is not like, because the difficulty to accept new challenges and the fear of not being able to deliver is something within yourself. Things that are within yourself, you can influence, you can manage, you can control, right? So it is not something that you cannot control. Okay, so to me, that would be an anchor problem. Okay, good questions, by the way. All right, any other questions? Any other questions? Right, so the thing here now is this. The reason why I wanted you to go through this exercise is very, very simple. Okay, I want you to be aware of the types of problems or challenges you are facing in your current job or your current career, or maybe in finding a new career. Rather than focus on things that you cannot control, which are gravity problems, look at things and list down what are the things that you feel are holding you back, but to some extent, you can manage or control, whether it's by yourself or whether it's by seeking help from other people. Okay. All right, so Mel asks, so if we are not able to influence and turns out from anchor to gravity, again, you have to look deeply. If you cannot influence, yeah, probably you're right, it becomes a gravity problem. So like the case of my client, okay, a company has bought over her company, so she cannot control the fact that the company has been bought over, so that becomes a gravity problem. It's not an anchor problem. So no point focusing on the fact that her company is being bought over. So let me continue about this analogy for this client, shall I? Okay, so this client, all right, so just to recap again, she has been working as an accountant for 4 years, and recently her company has been bought over. So she was very concerned what's going to happen to her, right? So her gravity problem, she listed down, was the fact that she's going to have a new boss, she's going to have a new company, a new set of managers, new set of protocols to follow. Okay, so that's a gravity problem. She cannot control that. Okay, what's the anchor problem? The anchor problem was a lack of knowledge about what's going to happen to her, what's going to happen to the job. There's a lack of insight as to how the boss is going to be will accept her. How will she fit in with the boss work style? And also another anchor problem was, how is she going to adapt with the new set of colleagues that's going to come in? Okay, so should I tell you how we worked out what she can do? Okay, so in this case, when the client focused on the anchor problems instead of the gravity problems, right? She looked at it and said, okay, how can I solve this? I don't know what's going to happen to me. Okay, so can I talk to someone who has more information? Yeah, she can, right? She could talk to HR and ask the HR about it, right? How can I adjust to my new boss? Well, why don't you either find out from other people who's worked under that boss before, or maybe you just make the first move and say, and work it out with the boss and say, boss, so glad that you're coming in. I just wanted to ask you, how would you like me to work with you on this project and all that, all right? How can she work with her new colleagues? Now, this is something that I thought was a very novel way. She went about looking at things in a very different way. So she combined the reframing part with this particular activity, right? And she came in and said, okay, I'm going to treat this whole thing as if I'm joining the company for the first time, okay? All right? Instead of looking at, oh, I've built up 4 years of track record in the old company, now it's all wasted. Instead of looking at it that way, why don't you say, oh, I can start afresh? Because now it's a new company, so-called new company. I can start afresh. And when I start afresh, everything looks so exciting. So her attitude changed. She became very much more positive. And what happened with that? Her new boss, her new colleagues saw that she was so positive and helpful. Just like a new employee, right? When you go in as a new employer, you become very enthusiastic, you become very positive, you want to help, you want to learn. That's what she did. Even though, it was a change in mindset. But her attitude changed, and her attitude, the way she looked at things was different. Her new bosses, her new colleagues were so impressed by her new attitude and her helpfulness. You know what happened? She became a team lead in the department, okay? Right, because she just changed the way she did things, to change the way she looked at things, right? She didn't let the gravity problems hold her back. She focused on how can she manage things in the anchor problems area. Okay, so maybe that gives you an idea of how you can look at things. Okay, so all right, so there's a question: is company's policy of carrying out certain tasks a gravity problem? Well, again, the question here, Yvonne, is really can influence the way the company looks at things. If it is an SOP that the company has, then maybe it's not an anchor problem, it's a gravity problem. Okay, so then the question is, then maybe you need to find some ways to adjust to that new way of working, or find ways to manage it. Right? Unless, of course, you are maybe someone who's able to change the policy or change the way they're doing things. Okay, so later on, I'm going to share with you another case study, another client, but that will fall under the category of the possibilities that I'm going to mention later on. Okay. Good questions. Any other questions? Any other questions? Okay. So change, controllable change, whether they are controllable or uncontrollable. Okay, controllable, you list it down, you try to work on it. Don't focus on problems that's outside of your control. Okay, so now we've looked at those things. Then now we have to consider what are the possibilities for us, for you. Okay, you've laid down on the table, can you look at things in a very different way? Okay, can you identify things that you have influence over? Okay, once you look at all these things, then your options, your possibilities, your alternatives become much more clearer. Okay, so generally speaking, as far as work is concerned, right? Generally speaking, there are basically three options for us. Can you think of what the options are? Can you think of what the options are? Remember, we talked about reframing, we talked about looking at things in a different way, which would then maybe influence the way we behave. We take a look at what are the changes that's possible. Okay, so maybe one of the possibilities here is to remodel your job, your career, your tasks, for example. Okay, so it's a little bit like, when you buy over a house, right? Okay, those of you who are living in HDB or landed or whatever, okay, many of the time you think, oh, I'm going to knock down this wall, I'm going to do this, I'm going to change the layout and all that. It's exactly the same thing, right? Is there a way for us to remodel our work, our career, such that it suits us better? Okay, I'll talk a little bit about that in a while. Okay, the other option is what? The other option is, again, which many people do, but I feel they do it too quickly without thinking of the implications or thinking if there's any other alternative, is that many people say, I quit. Okay. Yes, it's an option, but to me, it should be the last option. It should not be the first option. Okay. So to me, always the first option is, can I change anything in what I'm doing now? Okay, so that's always the first option. Okay, last option should be only if nothing else can be done, right? Then okay, no choice. You leave the company. Okay. Now, there's a third option as well. Okay, which I think some of you has mentioned as in the beginning as part of your reasons why you come in here. Okay, another option here is to change career, right? Not only change job, but change career. And I'm going to talk about this as well. All right, so I'm going to talk about each of this in the next portion of the cycle. This process is the revising and the testing portion. All right, so here, what we're going to do is that we're going to rely again on all the things that we did this morning. Okay, what problems we solve, what is our purpose in life? Okay, how good are we? What are the things that we are good at? Okay, all those information that you did in the morning, we're going to combine that and think about how can we remodel? How can we remodel ourselves? Okay, so remodeling a bit like what let's say doing a renovation for your house. Okay, drastic remodeling could be what? Knocking down walls, right? That's knocking down structure. So that's structural. Okay, that's structural. Another way of remodeling is what? Repurposing maybe the room. Instead of the room becoming a room being a bedroom like it was designed for, maybe you could repurpose it to become a study or maybe an exercise room. Okay, so repurposing. Okay, so let me give you an example of another client. Okay, this client, he was trained in marketing. He really enjoyed marketing. Okay, but when he joined the company, all he could find was actually a sales job. Actually, he was quite lucky to get the sales job because, being someone who has no sales experience but being marketing, the company was willing to take a risk on him and actually put him in a sales job. But it was a very different kind of sales job. But nevertheless, it was basically selling business to business, right? So they felt that he had the qualities to do it. Okay. So all the while he's thinking he didn't really enjoy the sales job because he didn't, for whatever reason, he felt that sales wasn't suitable for him. He doesn't like going out on feet on the street and then knocking on doors and talking to people, convincing people to buy stuff from him. Okay, so he's always wanted to do marketing, go back to marketing. All right. So he was thinking, is there a way for me to do some tweaking to my job? Right. So he went through the whole exercise of identifying anchor gravity problems. He went through the whole exercise of reframing and all that. Then he decided, let's see how I can tweak my job to sort of suit the way I want to do. Okay. So he started doing research on the trends of the business, of the industry itself. And he came across this trend where the sales job, right, became more and more account management rather than actual sales feet on the street job. Okay, so he started digging deeper into that, right? And then he said, oh, okay, this is something I can do because there's some elements of marketing inside. It's corporate marketing. I like that. I can do that. Okay, and he's also leveraging on my experience so far in sales. So it's account management. So what did he do? He started digging deeper and he started looking at aspects of his own job and say, can I tweak this? Can I tweak that? Can I get more involved in this? Can I more involved in that? And he approached his boss. He talked to his boss and said, hey, boss, I see that this industry is moving into this direction, right? And more, even the big companies are going into this area, this way of new way of selling, okay? I think we should go into that. And this is how I think can be done. And I would like to give it a try. So he put what he learned on the table and tried to convince the boss. And the boss was really impressed because the boss saw the passion, saw that he wanted to do something different, but he also wanted to do it for the sake of the company to move forward, right? And he said, okay, let's give it a try. So he remodeled his job, okay? He redesigned his tasks to include talking to head office people, accounts, all right? And he was pretty successful. In fact, it became such that he became the account manager in the sales department, but he had salespeople reporting to him. Can you imagine that? Right? So he took the step. He did the legwork to look at how much he can change, how he can tweak before he started, doing the stuff. Okay. So in this case, he could have easily said, no, I don't like the sales job. I'm going to quit and go into another role. He could have easily done that. However, he didn't. He took a look at the role again. He said, is there another way I can tweak it around and do this? And that's what he did. And he did it very, very successfully. Okay. So this is what I call the process of remodeling. Okay. Relooking at what you are doing. If you are currently in a job, can you change aspects of your job? Now, for those of you who are looking around for a job, you are not employed, all right? Then the question comes into your head, do I want to continue with the same job, right, in the same industry, right, but in a different company, or do I want to do something different? Okay, so in that case, then it's a question, maybe it's not so much a question of remodeling, although you can still look at this, because if you are going into another job, the same job in another company, is it possible for you to tweak it such that the reasons that you didn't like the previous job can be mitigated. Okay, or you may think, no, I want to do something totally different. In which case, then you are probably looking at changing careers. You're looking at changing careers. And really, the process of changing careers is really a reinvention, to be frank with you. It's a reinvention, okay? Now, there are two things I'm going to put on the table very early on. Firstly, changing careers is one of the most difficult things to do in anyone's career life. Okay, so I don't take it lightly. Whenever anybody comes to me and say they want to change career, I always tell them don't take it lightly because it's very, very difficult to do. It can be done, but it's very, very difficult. So you have to be very realistic about things. Okay. Secondly, given that we are almost 2 o'clock now, I don't have time to go through all the process of career change. That is actually a separate workshop on its own, which actually there is. I'm going to give you another alternative to dig deeper into this process of career change in a little while. Okay, so just keep an eye out for this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give you some key points here for you to consider. Okay, so again, career change is all about reinventing yourself, right? But you have to consider a few things, few very important things. Okay, I'm going to show you this particular diagram. I didn't do this diagram. Okay, it is from another person who did a webinar, and I thought I like this concept. I wanted to introduce this to you. Okay, I like the way it's represented here. You can see here the axis. Okay, here you have career at the bottom, industry. So path 1, same career, same industry. Okay, path 2, same career, different industry. Path 3, change career, same industry. All right, change career, same industry. Or path 4, change career, change industry. Okay. Can you all tell me, you type into the chat box, which box is the most difficult to achieve? Can you all type into the chat box? Yeah, you are right. Okay. Number 4 is the most difficult because you're talking about changing everything. Change career, change industry. That is the most difficult thing to do. That is the riskiest thing to do. Okay. So that's why whenever somebody comes to me and say, I want to change career, I always try to get them to look at either box 2 or box 3. To me, this is a pivot, pivot, P-I-V-O-T. It's not a change, it's a pivot, okay? If you change career but same industry, you at least have industry knowledge. Maybe different job, but same industry knowledge, okay? If you change industry, but the same type of job, like marketing, for example, you change from IT to FMCG, like what I did. I changed from IT to FMCG, right? You still have career knowledge, job knowledge, although the industry may change. Okay? So pivoting is actually a lot more a lot more sensible, and a lot more easier than jumping straight into box 4 where you change everything. Capish? Okay? So for those of you who are considering a change in your career, I strongly urge you as a first step to pivot. Pivot either to box 2 or box 3. Okay, so let me remove this arrow here so that you can see this. Maybe you want to take a picture of this, by all means do so, a screenshot. Okay, so again, I urge you, if you are considering career change, right, do a pivot, go to either box 2 or box 3. Okay, if you really feel strongly that you want to end up in somewhere that is considered in box 4, that's fine, but don't do it straight away. You either move to 3 or 2 first before moving to 4. Okay, so as an intermediate step, 2 and 3 becomes your intermediate step, 4 becomes your end goal. So that's where your goal setting and planning comes into play, right? But you have to make that decision. Don't jump straight into box 4. your chances of success is very, very limited. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that it's very, very difficult to do. Are we okay? All right. So pivoting, that's what I'm saying. And in the whole process, whether it's same industry or I mean, different industry or different career, all right, whether it's box 2 or box 3, it is really still a process of reinventing yourself. Either you reinvent the job that you have but in the same industry, or you reinvent yourself in terms of a different industry but the same job. So for example, for me, okay, I started off in IT, in sales, okay, and in sales I learned account management because that was a time that they were doing that a lot. Okay, then I decided IT didn't suit me. I want to move into something else which was more marketing centric. So I moved into FMCG marketing. Okay, so yeah, and I did that, and it was pretty rewarding for me as well, personally fulfilling. Even though financially, you know, I still keep in touch with my friends in IT industry. Those who have stayed on, right? Those who have stayed on, they're definitely earning more than me, right? But I know if I stayed on, I wouldn't have been happy. So now I'm much happier. At that time, I was much happier. I'm making that move. Okay. So again, I want to emphasize, pivot. Pivot should be your first consideration instead of making a dramatic change in your career. Questions at this stage? Questions at this stage? Thank you, DC. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, the pivot can be a stepping stone to a bigger step for career change in the future. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Okay, good. Now, the next piece of advice, okay, again, like I was saying, I don't have time to go through the individual components of career change, but the next piece of advice here is this. Okay, remember earlier I said that we have a lifetime of careers. Okay, so in order to have a lifetime of careers, we are really looking at many different versions of ourselves right now. Okay, many different versions of ourselves. And therefore, you know, when we are looking at many possible different versions of ourselves, how can we then make sure that we are able to transit successfully from one version to the other? So again, this is a bit like reinventing ourselves, and maybe in a certain extent, you know, repurposing our identity in a sense. Okay, so this diagram I borrowed from a book. All right, this book was talking about the whole idea that, you know, when we are going about making career changes, okay, we're actually doing a series of experiments. What do we mean by that? Okay, experiments are essentially trying out different things to try and see, are we able to go into the industry? Are we suited for the industry or not? Okay, so when we are conducting experiments, right, this is what happens. Okay, we want to make sure that we have the right skills, the right strengths. So we need to know what these are. Okay, we have to be adaptable. We have to be open to new things coming. We cannot be closed to say, no, I'm just going to do that particular aspect. I cannot consider new things. Okay, we need to have support. Okay, because this is not a solo effort. This is something that we need support from not only our family, but our friends as well. Okay, and when we are conducting experiments, when we're trying out new things, we also need to manage our own expectations. Okay, how we see ourselves, how we see the path going down. So in other words, remember the diagram I showed you at the beginning. Our career path is not one straight line. It can be a lot of curves and a lot of detours. So we need to manage ourselves in that. Okay, constantly reevaluate, reset. If something is not right, we reset, we go back. Whether we go back to zero is up to you. Okay, maybe we don't go back to zero, but you know, we just have to be able to expect that maybe not all the time we can move ahead. Sometimes we have to move laterally. Okay, so again, if I can share with you my own particular history, I've actually changed careers quite a lot. Yeah, I think I changed on average about 4 or 5 times. A lot of them are different industries. Many of them are different roles. Okay, I did a lot of pivots. Okay, so from IT to FMCG, then to HR consulting, to hotel and leisure, all right, to university education, right, and then now here as a coach. And all in all the roles were different as well. So sales, marketing, general management, HR recruiting, ops management, program director, and now a coach. So all the way I was experimenting, I was trying to find out what I was good at, what I liked. Okay.
How do you do that when you got no experience?
You see, I pivot, Linda. I pivot. I didn't jump straight into something. I pivot on what I knew before. Okay.
But I think you are lucky because maybe the employers you met, the recruiting managers are they are more open-minded. They have a growth mindset. You know, from my experience, I think like now they are very, very picky.
Okay, Lynette, I share your concern, and I know there would be some that are picky, okay, as you use the word. But again, like I said, I don't feel that it's purely luck. Yes, there's some elements of luck. Luck in the sense that I met people who were able to refer me to the right people. That could be luck inside. But it also, to a certain extent, I did the legwork. I went out. I tried to find the right people. I did a lot of research. I did a lot of asking around. Okay, so that is not luck. I had to do the legwork. So when you're making a career change, there's a lot of legwork involved. It's not just about you applying to advertise jobs. Okay, those of you who have attended my past workshops on career change, you would know my policy on this. Making a career switch or career change, right? You cannot just apply for advertised jobs. You have to go out and work at it. Okay, because if you just apply for advertised jobs, you're right, Lynette, your chance of success is less because the recruiters will not pick you because you don't have the right experience or background. All right. So going for advertised jobs as a career switcher, your chance of success is very low. Right. But if you are willing to put in the legwork and go out and meet the right people, establish the right
actually,
contacts,
what do you mean by doing the legwork?
which is what I just said. You go out, meet people, do your research, find out what company is suitable for you, establish connections, which I'm going to explain later under the expanding connections part. All right. And then try and maybe to a certain extent, if you find you don't have the right skill set, maybe you go and learn the skill set first, if that's where you want to go. We're learning by either taking courses or by volunteering to get the experience. Okay, so that is what I mean by legwork.
But if you got no experience and then the person who recommend you, their reputation will be at stake. Right?
There must be a reason why they recommend you, right? They don't recommend you just because you ask them to recommend you. Okay, they recommend you because they know that certain parts of you are able to do that work.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So it's up to you to convince the recruiter or the employer. That's why this thing about putting together what problems you can solve, that highlights whether your skills are transferable to their context. And that's why you have to dig and find out what the problems are before you can tell them you can help solve that problem. Okay. Augustus, you have a question. Meaning people, a question is who to meet, where to meet, and what's next. Very good question, Augustus. And that's where the legwork comes in. You have to dig deeper and find out which company suits you. Okay, which company suits your background, which companies hire people from your background, which companies you feel you can help being a problem solver, you can help them. Okay, so that's part and parcel of the legwork itself. Now, you know, this thing about career switching, again, like I said, we don't really have a lot of time to do this, but what I can say is this. I think later on in not next month, the month after, that I actually am doing another workshop on career switching. But before that, maybe towards the end, I will share with you, there's another way for you to get to know more about career switching, which I'll share with you in a while. Okay. All right. So let me talk about the expanding connections first as well. So maybe that will also answer some of your questions. So, okay. So conducting experiments about going out is more about yourself. Okay. How you handle things, how you know yourself, what you're good at, how you manage your expectations, how you get support from other people. Okay. So now the next part here is really looking at connections, right? Building relationships, as the word there suggests. Okay. When you're expanding your connections, you are building relationships. You're building relationships with the right people. Right in the sense that it could be the first level contact, it could be the second level contact. In other words, people who you believe can help you progress. Okay. Now, why would they want to help you? Okay. They will only help you if they know you. Okay. If they know what sort of person you are. And that's where the relationship building comes in. So it is not about straight away establishing one time and saying, let's connect on LinkedIn, for example, and then straight away you say you have a relationship. No, you have to add value to them. You have to help them some way. You have to, build a relationship. I mean, it's a bit like knowing people, right? You build relationships with different people. You can't build it quickly in the short term. You have to put an effort into building a relationship. Yeah. So, and one of the best ways to do that is really to, excuse me, add value to them. Okay. Branding is important. Okay. When you're expanding your connections, your personal branding comes into play. Again, this is a whole separate topic altogether, which I apologize that I can't do it here. Again, it's a separate workshop that I used to deliver. Okay. So personal branding is another important part. Now I included support here again. Okay. Support here is also important because when you're building relationships, it's not something that you do alone. Okay. You also want support from people around you, your connections, your family, and all. Okay. So again, building support, having support and building relationships are part and parcel. It goes hand in hand. Okay. So that's part of expanding your connections. Now, let's talk about the last part, telling a new story. Now, when you are building connections, when you're building relationships, when you're going out, connecting with people, you're working in different opportunities, different when you're conducting experiments, then you have the opportunity to tell a new story about yourself, what's happening. Okay, so this is where then you start thinking, okay, I want to tell people that I'm doing something new. I want to tell people that I'm good at doing this new thing. All right. So how do you do this? Obviously, the more you do it, the better you are. So doing is very important. But when you say it, you also must be convinced that that's the right thing for you. Okay. So one of the common things I ask my clients to do, especially when they're changing careers, somewhere along the way, not immediately, but somewhere along the way, when they've sort of tidied up their LinkedIn profile and all that, maybe in the LinkedIn profile, they start talking about the new areas that they're considering. They start highlighting, they start sharing information about the new areas that they're trying out. And by sharing, they are trying to convince people. They're also trying to convince themselves. So the words that you use when you're sharing such information has to be, you cannot hesitate. You cannot say, oh, I'm not sure about this, so I'm just trying it out and all that. Just imagine if you read about someone who says they're going to a new area, but they're not sure, they're just trying out. What's your feeling about that person? You're probably not convinced, so you're probably not saying, okay, let him wait first. I'm not going to suggest anything. Just let him try it out and see where. Yeah. So if you that's why I said this part of sharing your story, telling your new story, you should only tell it after you are convinced that that's the story that you want to tell about yourself. Okay. Personal branding comes into play again. Okay, because then you're building or rebuilding your brand. And this notion of visualizing, I find, is very, very important. Visualizing meaning you see yourself doing that role. You visualize yourself doing that role. You imagine yourself every day I wake up, I'm doing something like this. So for me, when I started on this journey as a coach and a workshop facilitator, one of the things that I did was to visualize myself. Every day I wake up, what am I going to do? Right? Am I going to interact with people? Am I going to conduct workshops? What am I going to do? Am I going out and helping people talk about their jobs and their careers? I'm visualizing all this. Okay. And that helped me a lot. And I believe it will help you too.
Sorry, when do you tell a new story? After you have done it successfully or when you're just trying out?
Okay. You only tell a new story if you are convinced that that is a story you want to tell about yourself. Okay. If you are still hesitant about that new path, okay, then maybe it's not the right time yet, because if you are hesitant and you share this news with other people, even if other people have opportunities in that role, they might not share it with you, because like I think one of you mentioned, why would somebody recommend you to another opportunity if they are not sure that you want that opportunity or not sure that you can do it, right? So being able to tell people that, yes, I think this is really what I want to do. So the conviction is there. I think like what Louis has said, own conviction, right? And when you have your own conviction, you communicate it, people see it, and therefore people think, oh yes, Lynette is trying out this new area and it looks like she's really enjoying it. She's really convinced that she wants to do it. I think all she needs is just some more opportunities to try that. I think I know, so I'm going to give it to her. That is better than somebody saying, oh, Lynette is just trying out something new, but from the way she's saying, she's still experimenting, she's still not sure. Maybe I'll just hold back first. All right, let her try out and see what's happening before we do anything. You see? So there's always that uncertainty involved if you yourself are not sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
I think a new story is not elevator pitch, right?
No, it's not elevator
Okay.
pitch. Elevator pitch is one way of telling your new story. Okay, but elevator pitch can be applied to just telling people what you do. Okay, but a new story is not just one sentence. You can't say it's just one sentence. It's just basically whether it's through your sharing or whether it's you're telling someone, whether you are just by the conversation, you're just saying, oh, hey, I'm trying something new today. I'm trying something new this past week and I really enjoy it. And the way you say it, the conviction that you have goes a long way in actually telling people, yeah, I think, next time I come across something, I'm going to let that person know. Any other questions? Okay. At this point, maybe I share with you, I think a few of you have asked me this before. So again, I just want to make sure that there's an opportunity for you. Later on, at the end of the session, I'm going to share with you an opportunity for you that you can learn more about career switching. Okay, it's through an e-course that I've just done a few months ago. Right, and I've opened this up to a special thing for people who attend my workshop. So many people have already signed up. So later on at the end, under the bonus section, I will just tell you about it. So not to worry. Okay. Questions at this point? Questions at this point? All right. So in fact, I think I've actually done the redesign process already. I've already done the redesign process. Okay, so very simple. I'm going to keep it as generic as possible because I think all of you are in different situations. So what I've gone through is really some tips and techniques that help you look at what aspects you can redesign. Okay, so time now is about 2:20. Let's take a 15-minute break, 15-minute mid-afternoon break, and then we come back, we round off as a summary, and then maybe any other questions you may have. I think we have time to do that. Okay, so I see you guys in about 15 minutes time. Hello, welcome back from your break. This is the last stretch before we end the day. I saw a couple of questions in the chat box. So maybe what I can do, another question came up. What I can do is this. Let me summarize what we covered so far for today. All right. And then after the summary, I'm going to open to the floor all the Q&A, whether it's for this topic or for other topics. Is that okay? All right. So just give me a chat. And maybe during the summary, when I'm summarizing, maybe a couple of the points that you have raised will also be answered as well. Okay. So again, once again, thank you so much for staying on since 9:30. From what I can see from the participant list, at the end of the day, most of you are still here, right? In fact, 95% of you are still here. So that's good news. All right. So let's recap what we did over the last few hours. This is what we were focusing on, really giving you some ideas and tips so that you can cope with disruption. And the questions that you need to ask yourself is those three that you see here. right? How do you fit in? Where can you grow further? And where can you value add? Okay, so those are the 3 questions that we focused on, all right? We talked about defining what is work, what is value, and what is success, okay? Some of you may think that this is unorthodox, but I feel that it is something that's worth thinking about, because it's really more about, not so much about you, but it's more about how you help other people. And by helping other people, right, you feel better about yourself, you add value to other people, and then you are able to determine your success and control your success better. Okay, so that's the other one. We spend a lot of time in the morning talking about what our professional identity is, and the reason why we spend so much time was so that we can establish a benchmark. Once we have that benchmark, then we are able to determine what can we change, where can we change, how we change, okay, to redesign. Okay, so in talking about the professional identity, we use these 4 factors you see here. Okay, so in terms of purpose, we ask ourselves those 3 sets of questions in order to identify the purpose. So again, maybe this is a homework that you can do, right? Ask yourself, why are you doing this and all that, okay, in the worksheet itself. Who are you doing it for? How are you doing this? The who and the how perhaps can be better explained, can be better answered if you go through and establish purpose statements, like what you see here. So there are templates out there. Okay. Now, for those of you who are not sure about what type of job suits you better, maybe going through this particular assessment can help you identify this. Okay, so I pointed you to a website in myskillsfuture.gov.sg. Take a look at that, right? Go through it. You know, like I mentioned before, it is about you filling up what you're interested in, not what you are good at. Okay, and that gives you an idea of what type of work environments, what type of work styles you have. We also went through this particular exercise on how you identify what problems you can solve. And here, I'm really asking you to be able to separate, okay, to be really clear about the problems you solve, not mix that up with how you solve it. Because once you identify the problems you can solve, you can take that and transpose it to other companies and other situations. All right. So it's easy for you when you're doing your research on a particular company or organization. If you detect that they have that problem, then you have the skills to solve the problems. Okay. The other thing also I want to emphasize here is this. You may have, let's say, for example, in this case, a skill set like people and team management. People and team management can solve a lot of different problems, right? So it's not just about solving one problem. One skill set may help you solve different problems, right? So be clear about that and then how you solve it. Okay. So again, maybe this is a homework you can do as well after the session. Okay. All right. Charlie asked, the problem that I can solve is not by experience. Well, we don't really need to have experience to solve a problem, right? Sometimes you need know-how, you need insight, you need intuition. Okay. So again, you got to be clear. No, once you identify the problem, then you start thinking, how can I use that skill I have to solve that? Okay. We talked about mindsets. Okay. We talked about what type of mindsets we need to have if we are looking at our careers like we look at our own business. Okay. So what I'm suggesting here strongly is that you adopt an entrepreneurial mindset when you look at your own career, how you progress your career. So those 3 points here: anticipate change, treat your career like a business of one. You're one person, so be in charge of your own career. Okay, position yourself as a problem solver. Okay. All this is setting up a benchmark so that you can go through the redesign process. And during the redesign process, I mentioned, essentially there are 4 boxes you can go into. All right. So the first 2 boxes, draw and reflect, is really all about asking yourself 3 particular questions. Okay. Is there something I can look at it differently? Your perspective. What are the things I can influence to change? Okay. And then what are the possibilities I have on the table? What are the options or what are the alternatives? Call it what you will. Okay. What are the different things I can do? Right. Then you start thinking about maybe one of the possibilities is I can maybe tweak or remodel the way I do things, my current job, especially for those of you who are currently working. Is there a way I can tweak it? I can change it. Maybe it's not just about quitting. Don't quit as the first port of call. Look at your job or look at your career and say, is there something I can change? To what extent can I change? Okay. Many of you have been asking questions about career switching. Right? There are a lot of questions here which I will answer immediately after this summary. Okay, career switching, like I mentioned, is really a process of reinvention. Okay, it is about, but it is the most difficult thing to do. And one of my suggestions, my strong suggestions here is that when you make a career change, look at pivoting either to the same industry or the same career, but in different industry, instead of jumping straight to what I call the box 4, right? You saw in the diagram, different career, different industry, because that's the most risky and the most difficult thing to do. Okay. All right. General Q&A. So let me take a look at the questions that some of you have put down here already. Okay, so the first question I came across was from Louise. How can one work on pivoting existing role better? Louise, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Can you elaborate more for me? Maybe you switch on your microphone and just tell me what do you mean? How can one work on pivoting on existing role better?
Let's say if I okay, let's say if right now I have a role that I'm in and then I'm kind of like out of job. And right now I think that I want more exposure in other area of the job, and then I want to see that what is actually relevant, what are my transferable skills, and what is it that I can transit into another job while I leverage on my skill sets.
Okay. So remember the box, the exercise we did, the 4 boxes, motivational skills, burnout skills, and all that, right? So what would be very useful for you is to go through those boxes first. Okay. Identify what skills you have, identify skills that you want to use more, but you don't know how. So those are developmental skills and all. So once you understand those classification of skills, then you are in a much better position to start thinking, okay, I want to use, okay, let's say, for example, you want to use more of your motivational skills. Then you say, okay, I want to use more of those skills. Then you start thinking, what options do I have to use those skills? Is it in a new job or is it in a new current job, but I try and add something into that? Okay.
So what you mean is that if you have found what is it in your motivational skills, a motivation site that you want, if perhaps you go and kind of like get some of the short courses to really to kind of like give yourself a skill, and then after that add it into your resume and try to apply for the job or something.
Okay, there's no chicken and egg thing here. Okay, you can still apply for a job because motivational skills and developmental skills are different. Huh? So developmental skills are skills you enjoy, but you're not good at it. So that's where training comes in.
Correct. It's probably that you don't have the exposure in that area. And you don't have the opportunity to have exposure in a particular area that you wanted to.
Understand.
And to let you kind of like, or to pick up the skill set because you don't have the opportunity.
Okay, understand. So again, I come back to okay, Louise, are you asking in the context of you already have a job, but you're looking
no,
around?
I still do not have the job first.
Okay. So the thing here now is this, there are many ways to actually get more exposure into a new area, okay? You don't have to get a paid, for example, a paid job to do it. Although many people hope that that's the best option. Now, I've seen cases and I've worked with clients who say, okay, I'll give you one very good example. Just one I just came across. Okay, this person, okay, She was working as an office manager for many, many years. Then she was retrenched. Okay. And she didn't, for some time she was looking around and she ended up with a job as a PA, right? And in a new environment, it was actually in a hospital. Okay, a PA in a hospital, but she was a PA to actually the deputy CEO, lah. All right. So, but that's irrelevant to the story. So essentially, what she has done here is that she may have taken a lower job, okay, to get exposure to the area that you want, because she wants to work in the hospital environment, okay. And now what she has actually now got an opportunity. People have seen, all right, that she's very good at relating to people. She's very good at organizing things. Even though she doesn't have experience in a hospital environment, but they're willing to try it out because she has been working as a temp in that area. So now she's actually going to be transferred to setting up the new hospital in Bedok. Okay.
Oh, I see. So if what you mean is that if you do not have the particular experience, you can try to take up a temp job that is like very low paying.
I won't say low paying
and
or whatever, but it gives you exposure, all right? Or another way which another client has done is that this client was actually wanting to go into the same role that I was doing, which is coaching, okay? So basically he said, okay, I don't have experience in coaching. How do I convince WSG to employ me as a coach? Okay, so I basically said, are there opportunities for you to try it out? You know, is there ways for you to actually volunteer to coach, for example, for a little while, just try it out? And that's what he did. He volunteered to help young people in the church environment. Okay. Then from there, he started looking at helping people in E2I, because E2I had a program where they would employ people with no background to come in because they have the right attitude. Right. So they came in to try, and then the E2I would train them. Right. So again, it's about looking for such opportunities. So the thing that I want to impress upon you and everybody else here is this. Right. There are opportunities out there to try. Okay. So we have to maybe adjust our mindset to think that, okay, if we want to gain experience, maybe we should not be expecting a very high pay, for example, especially at the beginning, if that's the motivation that we have to try it out. Okay. Or we be prepared to say, okay, maybe in order to get the experience, I don't even get paid. I just volunteer somewhere and volunteer to do something part-time or whatever, just to get experience so that it looks good in my CV. Right.
Give ourselves a time frame.
Yeah, correct.
Of course, because we need to live.
I understand totally. So that's something you have to decide how long the time frame, right? Or you go for a job which maybe is not in the area that you want, but it's in the environment that you want. And then going in there and say, okay, like this person that I just mentioned, right? She was a PA in a hospital environment. She wanted to end up in a hospital environment. So she worked in there and they saw her, they liked her, she demonstrated capability, and then they are now looking at putting her in a different part of the operations to help set up something which she has never done before.
So they switch her role.
Yeah,
after
because
seeing that she's very good at people.
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
so it's either that you get into the setting and you get transferred.
Yeah. So that's another way to do it. Yeah. So the thing here is obviously you try and get opportunities to try it out. Okay, to gain experience. The opportunities may be paid, may be lower paid, may not be paid. Okay, you have to expect that. Or you go into environments which is paid, but in a different role. All right, maybe in a role that you're more comfortable with, but you are there, excuse me, you impress people, you tell people a new story, like I mentioned just now. You say, hey, I really want to go into the area, you know, you create a good impression, and then they see what you're doing, and they put you there.
You kind of like build up your connection in the company and tell people that actually this is kind of something I want, but right now I'm here, actually I don't have this opportunity, and so
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I hope it helps the rest of the people as well.
Yes, I'm sure it does. Thank you so much for asking that question. Okay.
Can I ask my question also? Like for me, my problem is a bit different, right? I just returned from overseas, having worked in Hong Kong for the last 10 years, 12 years. And I want to return to Singapore because this is my home country and my family is. So what I would like to do is ideally I'm happy with my last job in Hong Kong, and what I hope to achieve is if I can find a similar role in the same industry but in a different country back in Singapore for myself,
Okay.
because this is home for me. So I'm stuck in the sense they say I have no Singapore local market experience, right? Although I have the skills and all that to do the job, the only thing that is lacking is because I haven't worked in Singapore local market for the recently. So this is the my limitation.
Okay.
And then
So the
now
question-
so now I'm thinking if I should look for like a regional role based in Singapore, but then there are not that many in Singapore, and most of them are actually filled by foreigners working in Singapore. So is there like any advice you can help me so that, can give me so that I can, I'm not trying to move industry or what. I'm happy in my industry. It's just I need to move country because I want to come home.
Understand. Can I just ask, how important, how critical is it to have local industry knowledge in the role that you're looking at?
Because I handle also product, right? And because I'm in insurance, and insurance is quite a regulated environment.
Okay.
So one needs to be quite conversant in local regulations as well.
Okay.
Plus also the industry network. You need to have, especially if you're working on sales, you're driving sales as well as part of your KPI. Yeah.
What skills you have to overcome those drawbacks?
Now I have started to make a lot of network in Singapore industry because I still keep in touch with a lot of people I know here. It's probably maybe because people do not know me in Singapore context, and then when they see that your experience is largely outside of Singapore, then it makes it like harder, for me to come back here. Yeah.
The thing here is this, your context, okay, although you're operating in a different context, sorry, maybe I mute you first so that everybody can, okay, you're operating in a different context, but the industry essentially is the same, all right? So from what I hear, the drawback you have is local context as well as product knowledge, right? But you have the insights, you know how the insurance company operates, you know how customers think when you're selling insurance packages to them, right?
Yeah.
So there are things that you know already, okay?
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking here is that those things that you already know, can you use that to overcome things that are challenges to you right now, which to me sounds like product knowledge. Product knowledge you can learn, right? It is not something you cannot learn. So it is an anchor problem. Context, right, which you are doing already, right? You are establishing contact. The only thing that maybe you were saying, they don't know you in Singapore, all right? So, but you already know people in Singapore, am I right to say that?
Yes.
Okay, so the thing now here is this, the
I
people
know maybe I'm not in the inner circle, you know what I mean?
okay, it's okay. I think again, not many people can be in the inner circle, especially. All right. So the thing here is this: the people that you know in Singapore, again, developing relationships, them getting to know you better, especially if they already know you very well. Okay. Do they know people who are in the inner circle, for example? Or do they know people who know people in the inner circle who can refer you? All right. Just for you to develop a connection there first, not about asking for a job, but to just develop a connection so that those people know you. It's going to take time, Leonard. Right? I kid you not, it's not going to take time. Okay, maybe it's something that you don't have a lot of. Not a lot of us don't have time, but it's a reality. When you're developing relationships, you want to get into a new environment. It takes a little bit of time to foster the connections inside. Yeah. But I think the key thing here is this, because you are already in that industry, you're not actually totally changing industry, right? So your big advantage here is that you already have a lot of insights as to how the industry operates. So you need to see how those insights, those knowledge, those existing skills you have, how can you use those to overcome the barriers that you have right now?
Yeah, I think all my skills are transferable. I mean, I'm actually looking for a similar role to my last job. Yeah.
Okay.
So everything is the responsibility will be pretty much similar. It's just the environment will be different. That's all. Yeah.
The other thing I can think of is, especially if it's an MNC environment, whether your company, your previous company in Hong Kong can also help refer you to somebody in Singapore. That's another way that I can think of.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they don't have an operation in Singapore. That's the whole problem.
But it's not about having a direct link. Maybe they have an indirect link. Okay, it's not about having a similar operation here in Singapore. It is about maybe they are working with partners who have partners in Singapore. They are working with partners already in Singapore, or maybe somebody in your previous company know people in Singapore that they can connect you up with.
And I also have another issue is some of my previous business partners that I worked with when I was in Hong Kong have approached me. But then it is very sensitive because, like they were dealing with me from the other side of the fence, and then now I'm crossing the fence to work in their company. So some of them probably have hesitation about hiring me because, it like sometimes in industry you have this no poaching policy,
Yeah.
right? So this is also one of the areas that I'm stuck.
Okay. The thing here, I cannot advise you generally on this because it's very specific. So the thing here is you need to find out a few things. Number one, maybe the partners that you are in contact with, be very frank with them. Okay. Is there an opportunity for you to work with them? What is holding them back? How can you address that concern? So a lot of times it's about sitting down and talking to people and say, hey, I've moved to Singapore. Unless there's a legal barrier against you, if there's no legal barrier, then it's more about connecting. It's more about them not overcoming their own concerns, and how can you help them overcome that concern? That's the main thing. Okay. I want to address those that have written down in the chat box before we go on to the rest of the verbal ones, if that's okay with you.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay. So Gary mentioned, when creating a new story for career pivot, is it better to use existing LinkedIn profile with past, current work experience, or create a new LinkedIn profile to showcase career pivot background picture headline? Gary, you don't have to do another LinkedIn profile, okay? All you need to do is just tweak your current LinkedIn profile to reflect to people, right, that you are wanting to make a change. But since it's a career pivot, your past experience or whatever is still valid. Okay, so you don't have to revamp the whole thing or create a totally new identity. You just tweak it, right? Maybe instead of under your career history, you emphasize the relevant experiences that will help you in your next step. That's the first thing. Then the other thing is really about building your own personal brand. Okay, using LinkedIn as an example of a platform to build your personal brand, so that moving forward, whatever you communicate on LinkedIn, for example, it relates to the new area that you want to go into, right? So that's the advantage of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not just about putting career history there. It's not about that. It is also an opportunity for you to build your brand. So you can actually do a lot of stuff in LinkedIn to build your brand. Okay, so hopefully that helps you, Gary. Okay, Lynette also, okay, I think I've answered Lynette that one. So let me see what else is there. Okay, let me just go down. Okay, Mel says, how to overcome ageism? Wow, that's a big question, all right? Now, the thing here about ageism is that, let me ask you, all of you, is ageism an anchor problem or a gravity problem? What do you guys think? Is it an anchor problem or a gravity problem? Hilda says gravity. Anybody else? Mel says gravity. Well, mindset. Yeah, it could be mindset, right? But, you know, in essence, it is a gravity problem, right? We are all getting old. We are all above, for me, I'm above 50. I'm almost 60. I'll see 60 this year. There's no point thinking about, can I work in you know, being hard up about, alamak, this company is not going to accept my age and all that. Instead of doing that, focus on what you can control. In other words, can you find companies that have roles that suit you in your age group? Okay, then it's about doing the legwork to look for it. Okay, are you able to identify companies that accept people in our age group? Okay, again, doing your legwork, connecting out with people, finding out the information. All right. Or
It's also can be an anchor problem, right?
could
Because
be, right?
last time I got one lecturer, she's a 70 years old, you know, in the SMU, and then she before that she was a PA, supporting a boss, and her pay was very high, about 10K, and she has the right to say things, you know. Then later on, she do not want to work for the company anymore. She became a lecturer like you do. So and at the age of 70, she still dress up very well and go to the school to teach, you know.
Okay. So that portion, okay, the age is a gravity problem. How the anchor problem, like what Linda is saying here, is that you approach companies that accept you in your age group, your experience, right? So in that sense, the companies, the selection of companies is an anchor problem. It's not a gravity problem. The gravity problem is your age. We can't change that. The anchor problem is that you can go out and look for companies that accept you or roles that accept you. Okay, let me just take a look at the others. Okay, Hilda mentioned, even if you're willing to take a lower level role, not many companies are open-minded on hiring older workers. Again, Hilda, we have to do our legwork and go and find those companies. You may be right that maybe a lot of companies don't accept older workers, but again, there are companies out there that do value the experience if you position to them in the right way about whether you're going to solve their problems or whether you are able to work with other people who are younger than you.
And Mr. Lim, I'm just sharing my experience. Recently, I spoke to the headhunters.
Yeah.
It's not even the hiring companies, it's just the headhunters. And they already said like, oh, if you're taking this role, you may not stay there longer, you know, they may think like you're too senior, you know, blah, 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 blah. So the opportunities stop at the headhunters level already, you know.
Okay.
So it's
So
like
why
they assume like that, you know, like.
No, I understand totally, Hilda, and that's why I'm asking questions, because I deal a lot with senior clients meaning people who are above 50. Okay. Yeah. And the reason why I'm asking you this particular question is very simple. Why do we stop at just contacting recruiters? Let me ask you this, all of you. Recruiters are paid by who? Are they paid by you, what is it, the job seeker, or are they paid by the company? They're paid by the company, right?
Yeah, company.
So they are in the business of fulfilling the company needs. So they want to increase the chance of getting the candidate hired to the company so that they can get paid. So it is in their interest to get, in their mind, somebody who maybe they think the company is willing to accept. And many a time they think it's the younger worker, all right? But, all right, if let's say you go direct to the company, there is a chance that you can impress upon them that, you know, you have the experience or whatever to get across this. Or if you really want to work with recruiters, then you work with recruiters that are able to leverage on your experience. It's your turn to become picky already, you know, because not every recruiter is able to work with people in our age group, to be frank with you. Okay, You're right to say that many of them will take the easy way out and say, I want to get younger people. You're right to say that many recruiters will think we ask for higher pay, we may not stay for long and all that. Those are real concerns that even the hiring company would have. So it is up to us to be able to tell them that, for example, why are we worth the pay that we are getting? It may be higher, it may be lower, but we must tell them why we must convince them why we are worth the value. So it comes back to what sort of problems we can solve for the company, right? The value comes from people seeing the benefit that we give to them. If they cannot see the benefit, then obviously they're not going to pay us, right? So therefore, the question is, how can you convince them the benefit that you bring to the table, right? So it's not about job title anymore. It is about what is the benefit you bring to the table. Okay, so that's one part. Then the other part is whether you stay long or not. Now that one is a question that is best addressed during the interview stage. Okay, so then questions like, are you going to jump ship and all? Then you have to come up with statements to convince them, no, I'm here for the long haul. If you look at my track record, I've always been staying long in the companies that I worked in, for example. Or maybe their concern here is, can you work with younger people? Then you want to give examples of, yeah, in the past I've been working with younger people, or I'm willing to learn, that sort of thing. No, because one of the biggest problems when I work with older clients is this. Older clients tend to have a sense of self-entitlement. They think that because they are older than everybody else, they should be in a better position, they should be earning more, they should be in more supervisory position, their bosses cannot be younger. A lot of times, the mentality of us older workers is actually the problem. It's not the hiring people, okay? So I'm not saying the hiring people don't have issues, but I'm saying that it works both ways. So rather than focusing on changing the mindset of the hiring people, because we don't have any control over that, can we then do two things? One, change our own mindset, change the way we look at ourselves and our expectations, but at the same time, then also look at finding companies that we can work with, or companies that accept us. That's where the legwork comes in. Or developing connections that can help us promote our value to other people. Okay, I'm sorry if I'm being very enthusiastic about this, because this is my hobby horse, in a sense that I get very, very worked up when I hear people coming to me and telling me, oh, people don't hire me because I'm older. Then when I dig deeper, a lot of time, yes, companies may be fewer out there, but it's also about the person not willing to accept anything else. Usually, I'm not saying that's you or whoever it is, but I'm saying that is also a possible case as well.
Agree with you, Mr. Lim. How to find a company? How do we know? Like oh, these companies are willing to take the older workers like me. How to find them?
So the thing here is you have to do some research. Either you research online, okay, because there are companies that publicly tell people that we are willing to take in older workers, or you develop your connections. That means you build relationships, you build a network, telling people that you are in a position to look at this opportunity or that opportunity, and they may know companies that are willing to do that. Right, so that's why these sort of things for older workers, for career switchers, for people who come back to work after a long absence, this group of people, us, okay, you have to do a lot of work. You cannot just go through advertised jobs. No way you will get successful just by relying on advertised jobs. You have to go out, meet people, develop connections, dig deeper, do a lot more research. That is the way of life right now for people in our section. Yeah.
I have one question. Okay, recently I went for two interview, and then after a long time they keep on after my turn of interview they keep on looking for people, and it's quite some time they didn't come back to me. So then got one of the HR come back to me and tell me that, oh, they have identified someone else. So I asked the HR, what is the reason that I am not being identified? Can you let me know so that I can improve at my end? They never come back to me on this part. They to them is like, it's none of my business already. Why should I helping you in let you know? I mean, it's like additional work for them like that. So they refuse to, they never come back to me and tell me what's the reason. Yeah. Why is that so?
So your question is what, why they don't come back to you?
Yeah, and let me know why they never identify me to offer me the job instead of the other person.
Wow, that one, I do not know how they select a person. I do not know what's the hiring requirement. I do not know you, your background. I do not know the background of the other person.
But
so
of course,
cannot-
I knew that is a lot of candidate at this moment because it just started to open up. So there is and got one company saying we have over a lot of candidates. So it's too many candidates to select.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And those are very valid reasons. So the thing I really want you all to understand here is this: don't get hung up about them not coming back to you. Okay, there's no compulsion for HR people or people who you interview come back to you and say sorry. These are the reasons why. No, there's no reason for them to do that. Okay, so if you get worked up about that, then you are going down the wrong tree already.
Yeah,
What's the
but
point
we
of
want to
getting
know the
angry about
reason
that?
so that we can improve on our side for the next
I
round.
understand. I understand. But if they don't come back to you, then move on. All right. No point getting hung up about it because there could be a lot of reasons. They are right to say that maybe they come up with a better candidate because, you know, there are lots of candidates out there. And then obviously they want to select the best candidate. Remember, I think, Linda, you've been to my past workshops before.
Yes.
Employers are risk averse, right?
Yeah.
So risk averse meaning they want to hire the best people that they can, right? So
there's no best people in the world.
no, but there are better people. Okay, there are better people amongst the pool of people that they have.
Yeah.
So they probably end up doing that. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying here is this: in the job search process, I want us all to understand. Yes, there will be unscrupulous, or I don't know what's the right word, unscrupulous hirers or recruiters or whoever that either rude or they don't come back to you or they just don't care and all that. All right, there will be people who are like that. Okay, don't get hung up about it. That's fine. If they don't come back to you, it's their loss, frankly. I always tell my clients, it's their loss because you need to know your value. You are a good person. The challenge now for you is to find a company that's good enough for you. Okay, so don't get hung up about companies that reject you. Go use the energy to go forth and look for companies that are good enough for you. That's my message to everyone.
Thanks.
Actually, I was told that sometimes they don't come back to us because straight away they see that our age is like above certain age. Then, you know, they just throw our CV away. So that's why, you know, they don't even read our CV.
It could be right. Then in that case, do you want to work for a company like that?
Mine is after the first already gone for the first interview. Then they didn't come back for the offer.
No, I understand, but I'm addressing Lynette's question. If there are companies that throw you out simply because of your age, then the question I really frankly have to ask all of you is that then do you really want to work for a company like that? Okay, because that company doesn't respect people in our age. Then what's the point? Because even if you don't get in for whatever reason, if they already don't respect you, then are you going to last long in there?
Actually, this one came from a company that is kind of a government agency, you know, which I found very, very demoralizing given that it is a government agency.
Well, there could be a lot of reasons behind this. I cannot comment on this because maybe the job description, the job role, right, may require someone who is of a particular background, right? Whether to say it's a particular age, maybe it's not only the age, but other things that have prompted them to throw out the application. Maybe it's not just the age. The age was maybe an incidental part of things, right? So I saw one comment in the chat that says that US companies do not have such discrimination, which is true. Okay, but again, we are working in a Singapore environment, so sometimes these things tend to happen. Yeah. Okay, let me see. Okay, so this comment, Chan Hui Kwang. I have a friend who told me that she put an advertisement for admin position garnering 105 applications. However, she didn't contact any one of them and give the job to a friend she knows. This is very demoralizing. But this is reality, yeah? Remember what I told you all? I think maybe Hui Kiang, you didn't come to my previous workshop. employers are risk averse. Okay, so going out to the advertised market is their last choice. Their first choice is to hire someone they know, right? If they cannot find someone they know, then they'll go out and advertise. No, so that's the reality here. Okay, so let's not get too caught up with that. Okay, so let me see what else is there. Okay, many companies just advertise officially to comply with MOM requirement, probably, you know, but I don't think that's a general fact. Okay, some companies maybe they do this because they feel obliged to, but not every company does that. Okay, what else is there? Have I covered everyone's questions here? Anybody got any other questions? You can verbalize it if you want, because just in case I missed out. Because I told you all to put a Q there, right? Then I know what it is. Many of you didn't put a Q, so I'm just trying to scan. Okay, I don't see any other Qs. Anybody got any other questions? Okay, so it's 3:15 now. So let me sort of round things up here now. Huh? So again, at the end of the day, there are a lot of resources in Singapore that can help you. All right. I think those of you, maybe Lynette can testify to that as well. Those of you who have lived overseas, okay, you will notice that the amount of help we have here in Singapore regards to job search and all that is actually quite a lot. It's actually tremendous. I've spoken to fellow coaches based in other countries and all that. They are astounded at the amount of resources and facilities that are available here in Singapore to help job seekers. So by all means, please do take advantage of resources like this. So this is one example that WSG has given to you all. Okay, so by all means, please do go to them. Again, I also want to give you all, hopefully you all, if you like, can connect up with me as well. So there's the Facebook group as well as the my LinkedIn profile. And essentially what I tend to do is that every time I see one of my connections sharing a job opportunity and all that, I tend to sort of highlight that to my network as well. All right. And at the same time, the Facebook group, I tend to do that, or I share some insights and tips on job seeking as well. So it'd be good if you want, you can connect up with me. And so that, let me put the URLs into the box, the chat box. So that's the Facebook group. My LinkedIn is, as you can see there, it's very easy to remember, LIMYW. All right. Then
LinkedIn, Mr. Lim, I think your LinkedIn, we cannot connect with you. We can only follow you.
Is it? Can they can connect what? So many people are connected with me already. Is it?
Okay.
You try lah. You try.
Just send you a connection.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So then before I go into the bonus section, the last thing I need you all to do is to fill up this feedback form. Okay. So let me just put that URL into the chat box as well. So I also posted there some future workshops under WSG as well. So the next one is on 26th May, personal branding, and 23rd June, career switching. Okay. So regards to career switching, if you don't want to wait until 23rd June, later on after this, I will show you an opportunity to do something about that earlier on. But please do fill up the feedback form, because that helps WSG determine what other facilitations and topics that they want to conduct for the job seekers like yourselves. Okay.
At the career grid,
Yes,
the career grid also they got courses. We can sign in for the courses, right?
I believe so.
So. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's like a central depository for all the things that you can do as a job seeker. Yeah. Okay. So at this point, while you guys are filling this feedback form up, anybody got any questions about today's topic or any topic in general in regards to job seeking? For those of you who have been to my past workshops, the next portion, which is the bonus section, is something that I already shared with you guys before. So if you don't want to stay on, that's fine. For the rest of you who are interested in the bonus section, by all means, stay on. I'll share this with you in the next couple of minutes. Floyd, can you share your video setup? Okay. All right. Let me show you a picture of my battle station. Let me see if I got this battle station picture. Oh, no. Where is this one? Okay, Floyd, this is my setup whenever I deliver workshops like this. Okay, so you can see multiple screens there. So like I said, it was something I learned to do along the way, right? So I'm actually going to change my setup pretty soon. So this is something that was done last month. So, so you can see the amount of effort I put in. All right. Okay. So any other questions? Any other question? What app I use for presentation? Okay, basically it's still PowerPoint. All right, I still use PowerPoint, but I also use an additional software called OBS. So it is a broadcasting software that many YouTubers use. I actually learned how to do this from watching YouTube. A lot of YouTubers use this, so I just adapted the best practices and put it here. Okay, so you can see that I do, like, you can see the chat here, then you can see the Zoom participants here, everybody sees that. Then what else is there that you can see? Then I can make sure I'm going to the left side or the right side. So all this is through the OBS. Okay, you're all asking me questions I didn't expect. But hopefully it's a little bit more interesting for you than just a normal workshop or online sessions that you've been attending now. Okay, so maybe I share with you the bonus for those of you who are interested in hearing the bonus. For the rest of you who have been to my previous workshops before, you don't have to, but I thank you for your presence here. Linda, no, I am my own tech person. Nobody else is helping me. This is my own. All right. So that's why I tell you that it is something I had to learn. It's one of my developmental skills that I learned along the way. All right. Okay. So for those of you who are staying on, I see there's still about just under 50 people here. So thank you for staying on. So essentially, one of the things that I always encourage my connections, people who attend my workshop, is really to come back to me on what topics they want me to deliver. Okay, so I'm going to put this particular survey into the chat box. Okay, so by filling up this survey, what I'm looking out from you is really you telling me what sort of topics you want me to deliver, all right, and in what format. Okay, so by doing that, then I'm able to customize this, and I'm actually thinking of doing workshops that's outside of WSG as well. So if you are interested, then I can connect up with, I send you the information. But before I can send you the information, I will need you to click on this particular portion in the survey so that you give me permission under the PDPA rules. Okay, now I'm recording this video as well, this workshop. So far, it looks like it's going to be about a 6-hour video. So those of you who have filled up this survey and then send me your email, I will give you a link to this video. Hopefully, I keep my fingers crossed that this video will be stored okay, because the last time I did this video, the last workshop, I had problems because that was another 7-hour video, which my colleagues have problems downloading. Okay, so hopefully this time now it's okay. All right. So that's one. So, if you are interested in me sharing with you in future other tips and also other workshop or any other information, by all means, you let me know in this survey. The next one is this. Remember I told you about the career switching, right? Now, you all have seen that in not next month, a month after, I'm doing a career switching workshop, but that is only a 3-hour workshop, okay? So for those of you who are really keen on understanding more about the career switching part, right? So this is where I'm making available to all of you as an e-learning program. It is not a workshop, but it's e-learning. Okay, I did this in February, so it was based on one of my other workshops previously, and many people have already signed up because the offer that I'm giving to you is actually only available for people who attend workshops like this. Okay, so essentially it is there's a money back guarantee as well. So if you're not happy, you can get your payment back, and the amount here is actually a lot more cheaper than what I'm selling for people who have not attended my workshops before. So the link to this is also in the chat box. So feel free if you want to sign up. No compulsion at all. So you can see that this workshop, this e-learning comprises 6 chapters. Okay, so obviously the 3 core chapters are 3, 4, and 5, where I talk about, for you, if you're not sure of whether you want to make a change. Chapter 4, if you want to make a change but you don't know what career. And chapter 5, you identify what career, but how do you go about making the switch? Okay, so those are the things here. So the link to that is inside the chat box. And I think that's it, really. I think those are the few bonus that I have. So really, this is the last slide, which is a summary of all the links and the activities that I've just mentioned just now. So if you want, you can take a screenshot of this. The links are already inside the chat box as well. Okay, good. That's all I have. It is now 3:25. Okay, thank you again all for staying on for so long, and hopefully you got something out of today's session. You know, the fact that you have stayed on means that you're really serious about this. So, you know, don't waste your time here and not do anything after today's session. Okay, so make sure action something. Okay, make sure you do something positive. All right. I'm not saying that you should redesign, but I think, you know, put into practice some of the things that I mentioned, especially the homework, right? Finding more about yourself, doing the assessment, categorizing all your skill sets, listing down problem statements, purpose statements, that sort of thing. All right. I think that will help you along the way a lot. Okay. All right. Any questions? Anybody got any final questions? I'm still here. Wee Chong, Augustus say what software you use to present your slides. I just answered that. It's still using PowerPoint, but I use OBS as a platform to transmit the PowerPoint into the format that I'm showing you now, where you can see my face.
Okay, can I just check this? Any of the latest seminar that is that you have just screenshot here talks about like techniques on pivoting?
Pivoting, the one that I would talk about is
I know
career
you
switching.
just I know you shared something just now, but does it talks any further into it?
Well, it would talk about how you make career switches, but because it's only a 3-hour session, all right, I can't go into a lot of detail. Okay, so but it's there. If you want to wait until next month is June. Yeah, June.
Which one?
Let me show you the slide again. Huh?
Oh, this one.
No. Okay, let me show you this slide. Hang on. Is a slide where you filled up the workshop survey. Let's see. This one. Yeah.
Oh,
June 23rd. This is a 3-hour session. So the personal branding is also a 3-hour session. Okay, career grid. I think somebody asked about the career grid. So let me just look at where the career grid is. Okay. So career grid is here. So BL. So hopefully this helps you. Oops. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody got any other questions? Once again, thank you everyone for coming in. I wish you good luck. I wish you good health. Okay. Even though we are now opening up today, Friday, I'm sure all of you are going out for drinks and partying, but just still be safe. All right. Pandemic is still there. And just be safe. Okay. All right. See you all soon. Take care.